Stillman and Company, 102.5, 106.3 The Game, streaming live on Twitter, Twitch, YouTube, and Facebook Live. We are live today from the Busy Bee Plumbing, Heating, and Air Conditioning Game Nashville studios. Ian is here today. Hello, Ian.
What up, what up?
So we've got a poll out on Twitter, and I was a little surprised by the current results. It is still active on my Twitter, at Jared Stillman, for whatever that's worth. But the question is, do you still believe Will Levis can be the guy? Like, do you believe he can be the guy? And I said after yesterday, because I tweeted this out last night, after Sunday's performance against the Bears. Ian, let me ask you this question first before I give you the results. Do you still believe Will Levis can be the guy after Sunday? I'm talking about the guy. I'm talking about Marino, Elway, Favre, Manning, Brady, Mahomes, even Justin Herbert.
Well, you don't have to necessarily be those guys to win a Super Bowl.
I think you kind of do.
Well, that could be debatable. Most likely, probably not, but you never know.
So the three options are yes, no, not ready to commit.
Not ready to commit.
Okay. I think I'm a no. I think that, again, the pure stupidity that I saw Sunday in his second year was almost enough for me to say no. 25% say yes. 36% are not ready to commit, and 39% say no. And again, most of the people that do follow me on Twitter are Titans fans. So even the poll says most people after Sunday they're out. Now, we know how this all works. Like, people are fickle. I remember when everybody in town thought Mike Mularkey and Terry Robisky are locking the Ferrari in the garage. They need to unleash Mariota. And we kind of saw how that worked out. So, again, let's grain of salt. But I do wonder where the coach sits in all of this. Because I do think there's a chance that Brian Callahan might be in one of the two leading vote categories and not part of that 25% that said yes. Because I was shocked yesterday listening to Brian Callahan's press conference, in which at one point this offseason, I felt the toxically positive coach had kind of, I don't want to say thrown Levis under the bus, but he was kind of keeping it real, which by NFL standards is kind of throwing Levis under the bus. Here's what he said about the Levis horrific performance on Sunday against Chicago.
Everything about Will up to that point, you don't know if you've made the progress or not until you play in a game. And those are just things that I was surprised that he did. The sack fumble, not much you can do about that. The guy comes free off his backside. He doesn't see it. He's getting ready to draw on the throw, and the guy rakes his arm. That happens. But the interception was a really poor decision. I know what he was trying to do is trying to do the right thing in that case, but sometimes the right thing is to take a sack. And he should have done that in that particular case. They had a blitz on that wasn't expected in that area, and they won that rep, and we just got to not make a bad play worse and take the sack. So tough pill to swallow for him, tough lesson to learn, but he's got to learn it.
I mean, he's telling you right there, like, hey, it's his fault. Normally these coaches, and again, every man can speak for themselves. This is why I always say when people are like, why would you ask that question? What's he supposed to say? And there is some of the, I mean, what's he going to say? But most of the coaches get up there, if they're not thinking about making a quarterback change, or they're not a defensive coach that, Robert Saleh throwing Zach Wilson under the bus, they're not a moron, which Robert Saleh is. Normally, it's like, hey, Will, we all made mistakes in the game on Sunday. It's not just about one guy. We're a team. And so, we can go through every play, and there were a lot of good and a lot of bad from everybody out there, and Will's no different. There are certain plays that we want to make sure that we get corrected, and we want to get ready for the Jets. And he didn't do that. He told you straight up, hey, I was shocked by how incompetent my quarterback was on Sunday. And, I mean, these are lessons we got to learn. And normally there's and if he doesn't, ... And then secondly, I was stunned by this from Brian Callahan. And I just want to say before I point this out, I in no way discourage this. But this is exactly how I felt in the game before the blocked punt. I didn't necessarily feel this way after the blocked punt because I felt like Chicago had all the momentum. But I understand what Brian Callahan was doing, which was he was pleading with his quarterback on the sideline, whatever you do, don't do something stupid.
It's a conversation that, frankly, we'd had on the sideline, kind of at the end of the third quarter. It was like, look, they haven't done anything on offense. Our defense is playing lights out. We don't have to be exceptional on offense right now. We're trying to still win the game. We're still trying to go score, but limiting the errors is what's going to win us this game. And to have that happen was disappointing, knowing that it's just we couldn't afford that, and we're probably going to have a chance to win the game if we just punt it. And that's, again, tough lesson to learn in a moment like that loses you a game.
I mean, he told you. I begged him. I said at the end of the third quarter, whatever you do, don't do something stupid. Defense is going to win the game. Run, punt, run, punt, run, punt. Brian Callahan didn't say it, but he said it. He cost us the game. We said there, the way the game was going in the third quarter, I said to him on the sideline, do not lose us the game. And he looked at me and he said, yes, coach. And then he went out there and did exactly what I told him not to do. Folks, the honeymoon's over. Every single interview Brian Callahan had done up until yesterday was nothing but glowing about Will Levis. There was an article in Sports Illustrated where he broke down his Atlanta Falcons game and said, that was a terrible decision, but Will told me, no, you're right. I should have sent it to the tight end coming out of the backfield who was wide open. And there was another article where Brian Callahan said, I evaluated the tape on Will, and I said, Will's better than all these quarterbacks that are coming out this year for the draft. We don't need to be looking quarterback. He went on Taylor Lewan's bus and he said, hey, I think Will Levis, this quarterback, is a big reason why I took this job. He even said last week before the Bears game, he said, hey, I know he's ready for the moment. Now, all of a sudden, now that the bullets have been flying, and he kind of hinted when he said, hey, there are certain things you don't learn until the games go live. And up into that point where we had no real live action, which, by the way, I disagree with, because I saw the interception in the Seattle practice in the 2-minute drill, and I had heard about the bad 2-minute drill they had the next week against their own starting defense. I think there are some moments here and there. But again, for the most part, he's right. It's hard to know until you actually play football whether or not this guy's going to crap his pants. But this is the first time he has said anything remotely negative about his quarterback, and he's basically blaming him for the loss. Now, Callahan's not wrong. He's telling the truth, and I don't ever want to discourage a coach from telling the truth. But that's usually not how business is done in the NFL. And Brian Callahan's not stupid. And so I got to believe that there's one of two reasons why Brian Callahan decided yesterday he was going to get up to the podium and he was going to put the loss on Will Levis, which everybody was already doing for him and he didn't have to do. The first reason is the reason that a lot of people are going to want to believe, which is that Brian Callahan is going to hold every single person in the organization accountable. No matter who you are, no matter how much money you make, no matter where you're picked, it doesn't matter. He will hold you accountable, which always sounds nice, but it almost never really happens in today's NFL. Because in today's NFL, players are sensitive and they throw fits on social media and they cause problems in the locker room and they hold out now. And, it's just the days of Chuck Noll benching Terry Bradshaw and Terry Bradshaw asking for a trade and Chuck Noll looking at him going, ha, 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 ha. No, those days don't exist anymore. I mean, it's just reality. They have a hard time believing that's going to be the case when Brian Callahan let Jeffrey Simmons throw punches in practice. So the other thing, which I think is more likely, is that it looks like Brian Callahan might be distancing himself a little bit from Will Levis. Because before Sunday, every single interview, every single commentary, every single question in a press conference was all in on Will Levis. And that's kind of messed up if Callahan is distancing himself from Levis a little bit. He tells everyone he loves Will Levis and that he thinks Levis can be the guy, and he hypes up the fan base. And again, the toxic positivity. Levis goes out there, plays terribly. Now everybody's freaking out and makes excuses. You know, when he in OTAs threw a ball in the lake. I mean, again, Ian, I think you were out. I think you were on vacation when
I
Levis
was out.
threw
Yeah.
the ball in the lake.
Yes.
And me and Chris Sanders, we laughed. Oh my God. I've never seen somebody throw a ball in the lake before. And so, you know, of course, the Titans, they made excuses. No, the ball tipped off of Wiley's hands and it bounced into the lake. And me and Chris were like, yeah, I don't know. Or again, the 2-minute drive versus Seattle. You know, oh no, it'll be fine. It'll be fine. Remember all the, hey, you know, I know that the offense didn't do well today in practice, but Denard's defense is pretty good, guys. Yeah. Okay. Well, that's not a red flag or anything. And now it's like, I'm shocked that Will Levis went out there and looked like crap. Again, kind of feels like it's a distancing thing. And I don't know what to make of what Brian Callahan decided to say and what he didn't say. And I don't know, you know, is this a problem with the Titans that's kind of brewing internally? Because at the end of the day, and I heard Robbie and Joe talking about this, and everybody's talking about this, Brian Callahan didn't draft Will Levis, which kind of gives him the plausible deniability of, hey, that's not my mess over there. I didn't draft him. Now, I think that Brian Callahan said so many positive things about Will Levis that it'd be hard for me to truly accept him to sit there and say, hey, man, but I saw the coach do it too. Remember, Mike Vrabel was supposed to be brought in to unlock Mariota, to unleash Mariota. Matt LaFleur was brought in to fix Mariota, and they couldn't wait to kick him to the side. Because at the end of the day, a coach will say anything to get a head coaching job. There's one of 32 of these in the world. So the Titans have what is the most clear culture of it's not my fault out of any probably business I have ever seen in this city. I didn't trade A.J. Brown. Let me throw a temper tantrum about it in the draft room so nobody blames me. I didn't hire that offensive line coach. Don't blame me. I didn't draft the quarterback. Don't blame me. I wanted to rebuild. I didn't want to bring back Derrick Henry, Ryan Tannehill, and Kevin Byard. Don't blame me. That's all this is it's always a moving target because they fire one person one year and they say he's the problem for everything. And then they fire the next person the next year who everybody gives a pass to. And it looks like that cycle is starting again with Brian Callahan kind of distancing himself a little bit from the quarterback. So I don't know why Brian Callahan said what he said. I'm glad he said it because it is true and I appreciate the truth. But as is the case with most things that are said, I need to know the why. Why yesterday did Brian Callahan get up there and deviate from the head coach's playbook? And the head coach's playbook is always, this is a team sport and it's a team loss and we lost as a team and Will is part of the team and it's 11 guys working together. Why did he do that? Is it because he's holding Levis accountable? Or is it because, hey, not my guy. I didn't draft him. 615-737-1025 is the phone number, 615-737-1025 here on the program. We will weigh in on your phones on this. And then I do wonder if Brian Callahan is starting to realize something about Will Levis that may not be fixable. We'll get to that coming up next. Stillman & Company, 615-737-1025. Want to tell you about my friends at Hiller Plumbing, Heating, Cooling, and Electrical. I absolutely love Hiller. They take great care of my home. They can do the exact same for you. You've heard me talk about Hiller and how it feels like being part of a family, and it does feel like being part of a family you can trust, a family that I trust. And this month, Hiller is treating you like family too with their Friends and Family Savings event. Happy Hiller Club members like me get up to 25% off your first HVAC, plumbing, and electrical repair. And everyone who's not a Happy Hiller Club member gets 10%. That's right, 10% discount. Present your coupon and save. You can download that coupon by going to happyhiller.com today. Again, download the coupon, call out Hiller, give them the coupon, and save. That's Hiller Plumbing, Heating, Cooling, Electrical, proud supporters of the Preds, the Vols, and Vandy. Hiller, call the Happy Face truck today.
How do you coach reversion out of a young player, especially with Will, when you say it's tough to see progress?
Mm-hmm.
Just how do you figure out how to take somebody with a book on who might be, he makes these mental mistakes and fix that?
Keep coaching. You know, we coach every day, and there's really there's no shortcut to that. And this was the first time I've gotten to see Will in a game environment. The thing that I was really encouraged about with Will on the sideline is that his resiliency, his demeanor, his ability to see and communicate what he was seeing was really, really positive. So that left me really encouraged in terms of our game day operation. And then we just got to clean up. He's got to get comfortable playing football again. I mean, he was under a little bit of duress, and that certainly has an effect. Took a couple of hits in the pocket. And again, that's quarterbacking in the NFL. You're going to get hit. It happens. We can be better in our protection and make him feel a little more comfort back there. But yeah, he's also got to see where he can improve his spots. And that's all you do is you just keep coaching it. And every time you go out there and play, you hope that it gets better.
You know what that was right there, Ian, from Brian Callahan?
What's that?
That was a very long, drawn-out explanation for got to play better, got to coach better. It's like when Levis starts doing all this dumb stuff, bad mechanics, shovel passes outside the numbers for pick sixes with the lead in the fourth quarter, won't slide, takes every hit. What do you do? And all Brian Callahan can say is, well, we got to keep coaching them. That's what we got to do. That is really the only choice. I mean, unless you want to pick up the phone and call Ryan Tannehill. And again, we know what's going to happen if you call Ryan Tannehill. If Ryan Tannehill is the quarterback of the Titans, you're going to win 8 games, 9 games this year, maybe find a way into the playoffs, maybe not. I don't know. And then you go on with your life and you're picking 13th, and here you go. So that's not really going to do you very much. But as far as we got to get back to it, we got to coach them up. I wonder, so underline that word wonder. I'm not assuming this is how Brian Callahan feels. But this is what I do wonder he's starting to internalize, which is I wonder if he thinks Will Levis is coachable. Like, can he coach Will Levis what to do? And this goes back to what he said he did like. Ian, did you notice in that cut what he said he did like from Levis?
Demeanor.
His demeanor, his attitude, well, I've said this 1,000 times. If wanting to be a great quarterback was a choice, if that equaled great quarterback, Tom Brady wants to be a great quarterback. He worked his butt off. Belichick would say he'd take the rookies out there when he was a third stringer and he'd throw the ball around with them after practice and go over routes, and nobody works harder. And right. But there's also guys that work just as hard that aren't as good. I was told by Floyd that there was a year in New England where Brian Hoyer literally mimicked everything that Tom Brady did for an entire year. He was Brian Hoyer. And so, again, there's another element. There's the there's the desire to be a great quarterback. Then there's also the ability to do it. And I wonder if Brian Callahan is standing there on the sideline thinking to himself, I don't know if I can coach this guy. I mean, I just literally looked him in the eye at the end of the third quarter, saw my defense pitching basically a shutout, and said, hey, man, like, if you just don't do anything stupid, we're going to win. In fact, I think there's a chance I can call 3 runs with Tony Pollard, turn around and punt it, if I can get the punt off, turn around and punt it, and win the game. Do you understand? Yes, coach. And then he goes out there and he does something stupid. Now, this is only the first time, so maybe Callahan thinks, okay, maybe we'll try a different approach. But I think there's to be a little piece inside of him that's like, I just told you not to do that. Now, again, we don't question Will Levis's heart. We don't question his desire to be a great quarterback. We question whether or not he can do it, which, again, leads me back to this whole notion of, I wonder if he can be coached. Or if just when he gets out there and he sees those rushers coming, everything that Sensei had taught him all of a sudden just escapes him. And it's like right back to, as the caller said yesterday, panic ball. And there's an old saying that Paul Sandiford, who's a Hall of Fame women's basketball coach, took Western Kentucky to the women's Final Four where they lost in the national title game to Pat Summitt in Tennessee. And Coach Paul Sandiford used to always say, it's not what you know, it's what you can get them to do. And so if you're Brian Callahan and you think you've got a quarterback who's smart enough that you've spent the entire offseason with him, when he's sitting in the office, he can tell you what to do, and you say, hey, man, just don't do anything stupid. He says, yes, coach, and then he goes out there and he does it. There has to be a part of, I don't know if I can coach this guy. There has to be a little bit of that. And I'm starting to think that that's a problem. Maybe I'm projecting my own opinions onto Brian Callahan, but I'm starting to think there might be a little something to that. Again, being coachable is not always a choice. Sometimes it's reality. 615-737-1025. Our phone lines are driven by WilsonCountyHyundai.com. 615-737-1025. Again, I just want to know the why. That Brian Callahan came out yesterday and told the truth about why Will Levis blew the game. And I know it's crazy to think that, hey, could Brian Callahan see something he doesn't like to say, oh, let me put my hand over here. Let me stay out of this one. Is it crazy to think that? One texter says, what if the why is his sincere, honest take? No hidden agenda. You're, talking about me, dying to blame people and assign fault. Could be seen as a little childish, the texter says. I'm just saying, be constructive, not destructive. I actually think the childish thing is making this about me, because this has nothing to do with me other than it is my opinion. Now, again, like I said, there's 2 reasons why Brian Callahan's coming out and telling you, hey, we told Will Levis, whatever you do, nothing stupid. Whatever you do. There's one of 2 reasons. Either he's holding everybody accountable and that's what he's going to do, and maybe that is what he does. A lot of you guys are like, oh, yeah, accountability, yeah. And I get it. I also think a part of it is that he could be this. It's one or the other. And I'm not saying what it is. I'm just telling you that I found that to be very fascinating, that he doesn't do what every other coach in the NFL usually does. One texter says, you're criticizing Brian Callahan for being honest. And if he went up there and told a bunch of BS, you'd have a problem with that too. Yeah, that seems fair. Ian, do I have a problem with Brian Callahan telling the truth?
I think we enjoy that.
I mean, I just said, like, in no way do I want to discourage him from telling the truth. I hope that I'm not. But I'm not criticizing him for telling the truth. I'm trying to figure out why he got up there and basically said that his quarterback cost him the game when all these other coaches would never, ever, ever, ever say that their quarterback cost them the game. You know, this is why a lot of these teams, Atlanta did this last year, and I think it's why Arthur Smith doesn't have a job. But a lot of these teams don't like bringing in real backups for young quarterbacks. Did you notice who Caleb Williams' backup is? If this were 20 years ago, Justin Fields would be the backup to Caleb Williams because teams would look at it and they would say, well, I mean, we're going to draft Caleb Williams and we're going to play Caleb Williams, but Justin Fields is a better backup quarterback than Tyson Badgett or Taylor Heineke or Johnny Joseph or Jared Stillman or whoever. So we're just going to keep Justin Fields on a rookie deal as the backup. You know, that's how teams looked at it. Now it's like, oh, we do not ever want anybody to think that there could ever be any possible quarterback controversy ever, period. No possibility. There is a one quarterback that has a legitimate backup quarterback, one young quarterback that's got a legitimate backup quarterback. I guess you could say two, though Carolina's never going to go to Andy Dalton. But Carolina has Andy Dalton, who they'll never go to, because the owner handpicked Bryce Young and forced that trade, and damn it, I'm going to be right. And Anthony Richardson has Joe Flacco. And other than that, you do not see young quarterbacks with good backups because they don't want – it's Marcus in Washington. It's Tyson Badgett. It's Jacoby Brissett, who is technically starting, but, I mean, come on now. That's why they do that. Because they don't want there to ever be any, they want that young quarterback to think, son, you hang the moon for us and there's nobody else. But it's not true. And that's why they brought Matt Castle in here behind Marcus. Somebody who posed zero threat, just like Mason Rudolph. Zero threat. And so, again, I'm not criticizing Brian Callahan for telling the truth. I'm just saying, this is not what typical NFL coaches do. And Brian Callahan's not stupid. And I think there is a reason why he is pointing a finger when he's the kind of guy who never points fingers. I mean, remember, the Titans are telling everybody that Nicholas Petit-Frere, a.k.a.
PT,
that PT won the right tackle job when he beat out Jalen Duncan. 615-737-1025 is the phone number, 615-737-1025 here on our program, Stillman Company. And then coming up next, The Athletic does a weekly quarterback ranking, where Will Levis is, and who's behind him. We'll get to that next. Stillman Company, 1025, 106 for the game.
Caleb Williams. No offense pretty much in this game, none by the rookie. But Will Levis, the quarterback for the Tennessee Titans. Boy, with your team up, winning the football game, you cannot give this ball up. It's just a really not, well, I don't want to say stupid, but that was extremely stupid. 43-yard interception returned by Steve. I know I said it because it should be said. 24-17. You don't do that. You just don't do that when you're winning on the road in a tough game like that.
Terry Bradshaw, he's not very happy about what Will Levis did, and neither are the beat writers in The Athletic. Now, I don't think Joe counts in this anymore because Joe does college football now for The Athletic. I guess he does a little Titans, but so I guess they have The Athletic's NFL QB stock report, and so they rank the quarterbacks or whatever. Ian, do you want to guess where Will Levis ranks on the new Athletic quarterback rankings?
Is it strictly out of 32?
It's out of 32.
30.
Lower.
31.
Correct.
Okay. Ding, ding, ding.
Will Levis has fallen 7 spots. He opened at 24. Will Levis is now 31. Do you want to know who is number 32? Take a guess at who number 32 is.
Bryce Young.
No.
Watson.
No.
Bo Nix.
No. Malik Willis is number 32.
Oh.
He checks in from not being ranked. So now Malik is the only quarterback that they say Will Levis is better than is Malik. And the only reason they probably say that is because the Titans just traded him for a sack of footballs so that Will Levis could be their starting quarterback well ahead of Malik. But here, think of all the quarterbacks that we think suck in the NFL, and they're all better. Whether it's Sam Darnold, who many people think sucks. I don't, but many people out there think sucks. Justin Fields is ahead of Will Levis. Gardner Minshew is ahead of Will Levis. Jacoby Brissett is ahead of Will Levis. Bo Nix is ahead of Will Levis. Bryce Young is ahead of Will Levis. Daniel Jones is ahead of Will Levis. And Deshaun Watson is at 30, and Will Levis at 31. You're behind Deshaun Watson, the single worst contract and single worst trade in the history of the NFL, and you're behind him. How's it feel? 615-737-1025, and our phone lines are by WilsonCountyHyundai.com. Andrew says, did you watch Brock Purdy last night? He is absolutely mid and boring, but he wins. Let me tell you what Brock Purdy has that Will Levis does not. Composure. Everything else, Levis is ahead of Purdy. Levis is more athletic than Purdy. Levis has a better arm than Purdy. Levis is stronger than Purdy. Levis has a more accomplished college career. Well, maybe not really. I mean, Brock played a long time at Iowa State. But for the most part, Levis has everything that NFL scouts like, and Purdy doesn't. But what does Brock Purdy do? He does what the coach tells him to do. I do not think that if the San Francisco 49ers asked Brock Purdy to carry the team, I don't think he could do it. I mean, they broke down on the Manning cast last night a running play in which the kid from Gallatin High School, I think his last name's Mason,
yes.
The kid from Gallatin High School, he just ran right into the end zone for a touchdown. There wasn't Belichick sitting there on the Manning cast going, show the sideline angle, and you see that they push all the Jets defensive linemen like 6 yards back. There's not a guy within a touch of Mason. I mean, again, when it comes to Purdy just does what the coach tells him to do. That's why the coach kept wanting to get rid of Jimmy Garoppolo, because Jimmy Garoppolo has that same issue that I think Will Levis might have, which is you can tell Jimmy over and over and over and over again, Jimmy, whatever you do not do something stupid. And Jimmy will say, okay, coach, and then he'll go out there and he'll throw the ball right to the other team. He did it in the Super Bowl. He did it in the NFC title game. I mean, he did it on a Thursday night here. The only reason you won that game was because of A.J. Brown and Jimmy Garoppolo. That's it. And so, again, Purdy just does what the coach says. Like when Ryan Tannehill did what the coach said with Arthur Smith, they made some sweet football love now. One texter says, we all know Amy picked Will Levis. Pretty sure Callahan is safe regardless of record this season. The question is, if the Titans are picking top 5, do they take a quarterback or give Levis another season? Well, let's use the assumption, and I don't think you're necessarily wrong because there is some reporting that points at this. Let's say that Amy picked Will Levis. And let's say that Amy this offseason is the one that was spearheading the Will's our guy campaign, which it looks like she was. What is the one thing that we've learned over the last 3 years about Amy Adams Strunk? Ian, would you like to enlighten the people? What is the one thing we've learned? If Amy was all in on Will Levis, what's the one thing we've learned about Amy?
She'll change your mind?
She ain't that far away from being all out. Because she was all in on Robinson, and then she fired him. She was all in on Vrabel, and then she fired him. So now she's all in on Will Levis going into this season. And again, she's shown you that it doesn't take much for her to be all out. I mean, I thought the Steelers last year at the end of the year, it felt like it was just so stale with the Steelers that Tomlin got an average to below average team with bad quarterback play into the last spot in the playoffs. They went on the road to Buffalo. They were never going to beat Buffalo in that playoff game. They were never going to beat Kansas City in the playoffs. They were never going to beat Baltimore in the playoffs. They weren't going to beat really anybody in the playoffs, but Tomlin got them in there. And it felt kind of stale. It felt maybe like even Tomlin might want out. The fan base had probably had enough of Tomlin. And yet, because the Steelers just do not fire coaches, they gave him a contract extension. Amy can't do that. Amy's telling Diana Rossini at Thanksgiving, or I'm not going to say Amy said it, but somebody with the Titans who had the authority to speak on such matters is telling Diana Rossini at Thanksgiving that Vrabel's the coach no matter what. And then 6 weeks later, Vrabel's gone. You can't have that. Can't have somebody who changes their mind like that when it comes to big life decisions. Trust me, I know. One texter says, Jared, I like that Brian Callahan said what he said. I believe that as a quarterback of the team, he is the leader on the field. Levis needs to be held accountable for the loss because he unraveled and compounded the mistakes. Maybe Callahan said it because he knows Levis, and maybe this is the way he's trying to reach his quarterback. I really don't know. But if he says this about Levis, I want him to be even more across the board. Hold the ones accountable that need it. That sounds good, but that's really not how the NFL works. Do you guys remember the infamous Jim Mora Sr. playoff rant? You know, the playoffs?
Who could forget it?
You want to talk about the playoffs? Playoffs? You kidding me? Playoffs? I just hope we can win a game. So Peyton Manning had a game, and it was Peyton's third year in the league. Peyton had a horrendous game. The Colts turned the ball over a bunch. I think they threw an interception for a touchdown, and Mora just went off. And Mora said, you ain't going to beat anybody in this league. I don't care who playing that way. And then they asked Mora, do you think you have a shot still at the playoffs? And Mora went crazy. The whole rest of that week was about Peyton versus Mora. Coaches try their hardest to stay out of that. I don't think Brian Callahan's trying to do that. I can tell you right now, I don't think Brian Callahan is trying to get in a pissing contest with the quarterback. So when you talk about holding him accountable, like maybe that's what he's doing, but this is the guy who wouldn't throw Simmons out of practice for throwing a punch. So I'm just going to tell you, I think that Callahan is basically telling you, hey, I was shocked by it too. And this is something I'm going to have to learn. LD from McMinnville. We haven't heard from him in a while, Ian. LD says, if Amy was so irate after losing to A.J. Brown and the Eagles that she fired the general manager, what's going to happen if they lose to Malik Willis and the Green Bay Packers? So Robbie Stanley was texting me last night, and I would have to assume that Robbie Stanley knows more about the Green Bay Packers than I do. And Robbie was saying that he thinks there's a chance Jordan Love's going to play in that game. And when he texted me that, I thought it was almost like draft night all over again. I thought, oh, no. And I thought that not because I think the Titans have a better chance to win when Malik Willis plays quarterback as compared to Jordan Love, which I do think, but more so because, I mean, if you're going to lose to Malik Willis, there are going to be some fireworks. I mean, I'm not rooting for them to lose to Malik. I mean, I'm rooting for them to beat the Jets on Sunday, and I'm rooting for them to beat the Packers, and I'm rooting for Levis to look good, and I'm rooting for all the, the crybabies out there right now that don't even know, maybe the 25%ers, but maybe there's probably a little bit more than that that'll flip again and say, see, Jared, Levis threw for 3 touchdowns this week. Great. I'm hoping for that, but if I'm not going to get that, if I'm going to get a bad team, give me a loss to Malik, because then it's going to be, wow, I don't know what she's going to do. I will say this, and nobody gets in trouble for what they haven't done, but it would not surprise me, just given what's happened over the last couple of years, if they lost at home to Malik Willis, it would not surprise me if she hauled off and fired somebody. And the only person she would fire is probably the general manager. I mean, again, I wouldn't fire the general manager after week 3, but with Amy, there's no telling. 615-737-1025 is our phone number, 615-737-1025 here on the program. Let's talk Window Nation. Did you know, if you're somebody who has spent a fortune on your HVAC this summer, when it gets hot, you're cranking up the AC and you're like, I don't understand. I've got it set at 68, and for some reason it's only 71. It's your windows. And with the nice weather this September, it's a great time to replace them with energy-efficient ones that save money on heat this winter. That's right. So that's why you call Window Nation. There are a bunch of companies that are out there that are willing to redo your windows, and I don't know anything about the other companies, but I do know Window Nation. And I know they're a trustable company. They came out to my house, and they looked at my windows, and they told me I didn't need to replace my windows, and that's how I knew I was dealing with a safe, reputable company. Window Nation, they are the best, and they got a great deal, because right now you can buy 2 windows and you'll get 2 windows free. There's no telling how much you could save, because again, for every 2 windows you'll buy, you'll get 2 windows for free. And on top of it, no money down, 0 interest and no payments for 24 months. That's no money down, 0 interest and no payments for 24 months. So schedule a fast, no obligation in-home estimate now by calling 866-90-NATION. That's 866-90-NATION, or visiting windownation.com. Get with the pros at Window Nation at windownation.com.
It's a conversation that, frankly, we'd had on the sideline, kind of at the end of the third quarter. It was like, look, they haven't done anything on offense. Our defense is playing lights out. We don't have to be exceptional on offense right now. We're trying to still win the game. We're still trying to go score, but limiting the errors is what's going to win us this game. And to have that happen was disappointing, knowing that it's just we couldn't afford that, and we're probably going to have a chance to win the game if we just punt it. And that's, again, tough lesson to learn in a moment like that loses you a game.
That was Brian Callahan. And again, I just love it. Brian Callahan said, I went to him. I said, don't do anything stupid and we'll win. Do you understand? Yes, coach. When I was in college, I worked at Louisville for the women's basketball team. Jeff Walls, the head coach there, we've been very, very successful, both when I was there and after I left. And his dad, Roger Walls, was a football coach in high school in northern Kentucky, which is basically the Cincinnati area. And we were in Spokane, Washington for the Sweet 16, and we were talking about coaching and whatnot. And Coach Walls' dad looked at me and he goes, I coached high school football. He said, one time we were playing a big game. I called timeout before a field goal. I didn't care if they made the field goal. I called timeout. I said, whatever you do, don't let them fake the field goal. I said, they can kick the field goal. If they want to sit there and line it up and wait and whatever, that's fine. Do not let them fake the field goal. He goes, they went out there and faked the field goal, and we fell for it, and they scored a touchdown, and we lost, and that was the moment. And again, his son is $1 million coach. And he goes, that was the moment that I was like, okay, fine. All right, whatever. Coaching is and it takes me back to the line that the old man used to say that he regrets telling me, which is you're either coaching it or you're allowing it to happen. So the first time, shame on you, Will Levis. The second time, Brian Callahan's going to have to look in the mirror. Because Ron texts in and he says, how long do you keep Levis as the starter if he continues to play this way before you sit him? Week 5 or 6, or do you let him have the whole season? I mean, I would see no point in turning it over to Mason Rudolph. Because if Mason Rudolph becomes the starting quarterback, you're going to win 5 or 6 games. And if you win 5 or 6 games, now you're not picking 3rd. Now you're picking 8th. And I don't know that picking 8th does you any good. So I would say just roll with Levis and go from there. Realistically speaking, because again, these coaches are paid to win no matter what. My guess would be that Levis probably gets the first 8 weeks. And then if you're 0-8, then you can discuss. But I mean, I don't know. And then you're talking about putting Rudolph in there and oof. I'm trying to think, like last year, how long did Mac Jones get before they went to Bailey Zappi and they started screwing around with the quarterbacks there? I want to say, Ian, it was probably about November. And then they pulled the plug on Mac Jones.
Sounds about right.
And I'm guessing that's kind of where you are. Where like, you get to November, that's when Kenny Pickett got the plug pulled on him, Desmond Ridder. When was Levis's first game? Week 6? Week 7? I think it was week 7 because I think you were 2-4.
He was 3-6, right?
You were 2-4, and you had the bye, and then Levis went in there. And Ridder got pulled in that game at halftime for Taylor Heineke.
Yeah, Mac Jones started 11 games last year.
So I would argue that, again, if we're talking about what Brian Callahan would do, if it's me, it's like, all right, I mean, if Levis is going to be a train wreck, leave Levis out there and pick second. Fine. But these coaches don't view it that way. My guess would be probably week 7 or 8 is when you'd see them pull the plug. Oof. And that could not be. One texter says, can you not hear the glee in your voice at the thought of the Titans losing to Malik Willis and the chaos that would follow? That is not fanship, says the texter. That is ego and wanting to be right over wanting your team to win. Come on, dude. Let me say this. I thought the Titans were going to win 7 games. I was as ecstatic as you could be up 17-0. And all I thought, up 17-0 or 17-3 or whatever, all I thought was, if you don't make any massive mistakes, you win. And then I saw the punt block and I thought, oh God. Oh God. And I said, well, maybe this is when Levis has got to pull them out. Like, let's hope they can, let's see what and then he threw a shovel pass outside the numbers for an interception, run back into the end zone. Caleb Williams had one of the all-time horrendous performances and won the game. And I had to deal with Fox on TV going back out to Chicago to talk to Caleb Williams after that bull crap. This team's not going to be good, folks. It is what it is. You got mad at me last week when I told you that. I'm telling you that now. You saw the game Sunday. You're not going to be good this year. And I know it's a week-to-week league, and you could beat the Jets because crazy things happen in this league, especially in the month of September. But you're not good. Just like Carolina's not good. You're not good. And so if that's the case, if I know that the volcano, if there's nothing there on the land, why can't I watch the volcano erupt? And losing to Malik Willis, which again, I'm not rooting for, but if it's going to be a bad season, it's a bad season. If it happens, that would be like erupting Mount Vesuvius. I'm the one who didn't want to fire John Robinson. I'm the one that wanted to run it back with Tannehill and Henry because I thought you could win last year. I didn't go sign Andre Dillard, but again, like I'm the one that wanted, hey, let's see what they can do. Let's give it a chance. Let's give it a try. I told you guys when I found out on the Thursday, 2 days after they fired John Robinson, that it had nothing to do with any HR slip-ups and that it was all just Amy unhappy with his job performance. I said, oh, God, that's the sign of a poorly run franchise. And you guys are like, no, Amy's put her foot down. And I'm like, okay. So I know this is a gong show. So if it's going to be a gong show, and it's a gong show right now, you saw the game on Sunday. We don't even know who's in charge of the football team. Like, is it the GM? Is it the president who's above the GM? I don't know. If it's going to be a gong show, if it's going to be an unmitigated disaster, can I at least have it hit rock bottom? It's like you're a college football team. What would you rather be? You're South Carolina, although South Carolina had a nice win this week. But you're an average college football. You're Florida. What would you rather have? Billy Napier wins 7 games because he picks off bad teams. And, well, Coach Napier had a winning season and we got to a bowl game. Or would you rather have Florida hit rock bottom and get crushed and move on and go get – that's what I'm talking about here. So if this team's going to be bad and we're going to have to deal with all of this – and we're going to have to, every single thing, if this is what's going to happen, then I want to see what explosions occur if Malik Willis comes in here and wins. And I will be at the game, and I will be rooting for the Titans. But if they lose to Malik, that'd be crazy. 615-737-1025 is the phone number, 615-737-1025. One texter, by the way, says, insane how quickly you're throwing in the towel. It's insane to me that Will Levis can't learn to not slide. But until that changes, I'm not changing. 615-737-1025. Speaking of not changing, there's one thing that I have been staunch in my belief of, and every single person has argued it, whether on Twitter, callers, texters, Trevor, Joe, TD, everyone. And now, I think everybody's starting to see what I was seeing from the beginning. We'll get to that next. Stillman Co, 1025, 1063 The Game. Stillman Company, 102.5, 106.3 The Game, streaming live on Twitter, Twitch, YouTube, and Facebook Live. We are live from the Busy Bee Plumbing, Heating, and Air Conditioning Game Nashville studios. So we take a little breather on Will Levis for a second. So this morning, I was minding my business when I was listening to my favorite morning program, Ian. You know what it is.
Oh, yeah. Robbie and Rexroad.
Robbie and Rexroad. And I was listening to Robbie and Rexroad, and Mike Herndon, they said that Mike Herndon had tweeted out that Peter Skoronski's tape was awful. So I had to get out my phone. I like Mike Herndon. That's a good man right there. I like Mike Herndon, and I had to go to Mike Herndon's Twitter, at Mike Herndon NFL, and I had to pull it up, and I'm like, okay, let's see what he said as far as this is concerned. And I immediately pulled up and saw, when it came to Skoronski, quote, after watching the tape back last night, which, by the way, I have not done. So I haven't watched tape. In live time, I watched Skoronski for the umpteenth time not be able to move his fat feet in order to keep a Scarbini defensive lineman in front of him. And I said, I can't, I don't get it. Everybody tells me this guy's awesome, and I don't see it. I don't get it. And Herndon said, after watching the tape back last night, Skoronski's year 2 debut was nearly as bad as Will Levis's. Throw in a quiet day from Tajay Spears and Josh Wiley, and you have a very rough start across the board for the Titans 2023 draft class. Just one game, but it has to get better in a hurry. So he said, Ian, and I have not watched tape, he said that Peter Skoronski's game on Sunday was as bad as Will Levis's. And Will Levis's was some all-time bad.
Yeah, less than ideal.
So it takes me back to really what's been the last 11 months when it comes to Peter Skoronski. In fact, this is going to sound like an assassination or like a famous death, but I remember where I was when I realized I'm not sure this guy's very good. Now, granted, I threw a tantrum when they drafted a guard with the 11th overall pick because I think it's stupid to draft guards with the 11th overall pick. But at least I held on to the belief that, hey, they drafted a pretty freaking good guard. That every Mel Kiper, everybody said, I mean, if you're going to talk about who the most can't-miss prospect in the draft's going to be, it's going to be Peter Skoronski. Now, is he a tackle? Is he a guard? There's a lot. I think he's a guard, but he's the most can't-miss prospect in the draft. So there was a lot of that. And, I mean, again, I wouldn't draft a guard with the 11th pick, but at least I thought, you know, hey, this is going to be Quentin Nelson. This is going to be Bruce Matthews. This is going to be Jack Hanna. This is what they're getting. Then all of a sudden in like the Tampa Bay game, which was, you know, maybe midway through last year, I'm like, this guy sucks. And I remember tweeting it out. And I said the Titans had a Peter Skoronski problem. And Twitter got mad. Oh, my God. Twitter was like, you don't know anything. You don't know Paul Skoronski. And they would never call him Skoronski. Everybody that would tweet me would call him like Skronk or whatever. I don't know who calls him that, but I don't. But they would say, Skronk is a beast. I'm like, guys, I don't think he's very good. And then it kept happening, and it kept happening, and it kept happening. And I kept pointing it out. Nobody else was saying anything. Then it got to a point at the end of last year, whether it was the Texan game on the road, the Texan game at home against the JV Texans, the Seahawks, where the color analysts on Fox and CBS were like, and you take a look at this one, and it's Skoronski. Malik Collins just goes right in and just clubs him out of the way and sacks the quarterback. And even then it was like, oh, okay. But then we had the excuses, right? The appendectomy. Jared, he lost all that weight. It was probably good for him because his feet are so slow that it probably lightened the load a little bit. Jared, he had that appendectomy. Jared, he was playing next to Andre Dillard and Aaron Brewer. Jared, it wasn't his fault. Okay, fine. So they bring in Bill Callahan, the guru, and they finally, you know, Brian Callahan says he's a guard. Instead of this whole wishy-washy, he could be, he couldn't be, whatever. And even I thought, okay, he's going to be fine. You know, again, I wouldn't pick a guard with the 11th overall pick, but he's got Bill Callahan coaching him, and he's, you know, entrenched at guard, and they got a center, and they got a tackle. So he won't be Quentin Nelson, but he'll be okay. And then I was out on the practice field, and I'm watching practice, and I keep seeing Skoronski get beat. And I'm watching Skoronski go down to a knee and take his helmet off and spray himself with water. And there's no other offensive lineman that's down on a knee that's doing any of this. And I'm like, what? And then he gets back to the line, and Bill Callahan has some choice words for him, and he's going up against some guy from the Seahawks I don't even know, and he gets turned around in the one-on-ones. And when the one-on-ones would go on, I would always go watch the fat guys. Everybody else would watch the 7-on-7 because it's more fun to watch, Levis incomplete, broken up by a woozy. That's more fun. But I'd watch the fat guys because you know how much I care about the offensive line. And I just kept watching Skoronski get beat. And I kept saying, I'd say to TD, I'm like, what's the matter with Skoronski? And TD's like, well, you win some, you lose some. And Joe would go on there and they would say, Skoronski's having a great camp. And I'm like, are we watching the same camp? And then Skoronski had a terrible preseason game against the 49er backups. And then Mike Herndon went on Robbie and Joe, the same guy who right now was talking about how Skoronski's performance was just as bad as Will Levis. And he's like, yeah, Skoronski's their best lineman. And I was like, that's not what I'm seeing. And I know I have pretty good eyesight. You did hear that, right, Ian?
Knock on wood.
Yes. I have pretty good eyesight. Let's hope that never changes. I know I have pretty good eyesight, but I can't think that my eyesight is better than everybody else's. What is the matter? And then Brian Callahan gets asked about Skoronski. Oh, he's having a great camp. He's doing great. He's this. He's that. I was like, see. And I'm like, no, I don't see it. I see a guard who can't block. That's what I see. Somebody help me out here. Because, again, I'm not an expert on technique. I can't tell you, got to flatten your backside out in order to get your hand up to strike into the breastplate. I'm not Trevor. But I'm like, he'd get beat. And I know that's not good. So then they do it for real. And the old saying is, the eye in the sky never lies. The tape does not lie. And now we've got it. And now it's more than 6 plays in a preseason game. Now it's against real players. And now it's, Peter Skoronski's not that good. Guys, that's a problem. That is a real issue. And I do think that let's just, since we can all admit now that Peter wasn't playing very good, playing very well, it's my turn now. Because I've been right about this the entire time. He's a bust. He's a bust. When you use the 11th pick on a guard, he better be a star. And the reality with Skoronski is that he might end up being a solid starter. That's not good enough for the 11th overall pick. In fact, that's probably not good enough for the 35th pick in a draft in the second round, but it is not good enough for the 11th pick. That's bad. He's never going to be Quentin Nelson. He's never going to be Bruce Matthews. He's never going to be that caliber of player because his feet do not move fast enough. He is never going to be worth the 11th pick. So we can all say it. B-U-S-T. Bust. I got that Titans podcast that threw a fit this summer because, Jared says crazy stuff because he said we don't know that Skoronski's not a bust. And then the other guy goes, we're still trying to figure out if Burks is a bust. Trust me, don't waste your time. I got that one figured out for you too. I actually looked at the draft chart today. This is a take. The pick of Peter Skoronski, based on the value, may end up being a worse pick than Isaiah Wilson. But Jared, Isaiah Wilson never played for the Titans. How could Skoronski be a worse pick? Well, what do you think was a worse pick for the Titans? Corey Davis with the 5th pick or Kalen Reed with the last pick in the draft? Because Kalen Reed didn't play much for the Titans either, but we don't get upset about that because he was the last pick in the draft. It's about the value. Corey Davis, if he was a 4th-round pick, would have been a fine pick. The same way that Jonnu Smith was a fine pick. But he wasn't picked in the 4th round. He was picked 5th overall. The value of the 11th overall pick is 1250. Isaiah Wilson at 28 was 660. So Isaiah Wilson's pick is roughly half the value of Skoronski. So I can make the argument that if Skoronski is a below average guard, which he is now, and you had the 11th pick and the value of the 11th pick, what you didn't draft, same with Corey Davis, where you lost out on Davis is what you didn't draft when you did draft Davis. I can argue that that was a worse decision given the value than Isaiah Wilson. And think about it like this. Let's say you go 10-7 and you hold the 24th pick in a draft. If you're picking in the 24th slot in every round, in order to equal the value that ended up being the pick the Titans used on a guard who's not very good, you would need to trade your first round pick, your second round pick, your third round pick, your sixth round pick, and your seventh round pick to equal the value of the slot that you drafted Skoronski with. A first, a second, a third, a sixth, a seventh. And that's if you have the 24th. If you've got a lower pick, it's more. And he doesn't play a meaningful position, and he can't pass block. Bust. I don't need to see any more. I saw it last year. We made every excuse in the book. Appendectomy, bad players around him, bad offensive line coach. Well, he didn't have an appendectomy Sunday. He had the 7th pick in the draft next to him and a $30 million center, and he's got the best offensive line coach in the history of the NFL, and he still sucks. Bust. 615-737-1025 is our phone number, 615-737-1025. And I do have another offensive line thought that I want to get to as well. And the one thing that I didn't like it the whole time, but now it's starting to concern me even more. We'll get to that next. Stillman Company, 1025-1063 the game. Let's talk FanDuel Sportsbook. That's my official sportsbook app. You know I love FanDuel. FanDuel is the best. That's why they're America's #1 sportsbook. And they are continuing the special offer to keep you watching more football. Because now through September 22nd, all FanDuel customers can bet $5 and get a 3-week free trial of NFL Sunday Ticket from YouTube and YouTube TV. Then with a YouTube TV base plan, you'll be able to watch every regular season Sunday afternoon out-of-market game. All you need is a Google account and a current form of payment, and you can cancel anytime. Just visit FanDuel.com/JGM to download America's #1 sportsbook. That's FanDuel.com/JGM to download America's #1 sportsbook and my official sportsbook app. 21 and over in present Tennessee. Full price of NFL Sunday Ticket will be automatically charged seasonally after free trial. No refunds. Terms, restrictions, and embargoes apply. Gambling problem? Call the Tennessee Red Line at 1-800-889-9789.
We had some help plans designed to go help. I mean, it's JC's first game in there. We tried to help when we could. Tried to help Nick too. We're always going to try to help the tackles as best possible, especially, I think those guys with Sweat, obviously, and then even Darrell Taylor, who's a pretty good rusher himself. We did as much as we could to help them while still managing. You manage both things. So you manage trying to help the edges, but you're still trying to get guys out in the pattern so you can affect the coverage structure. So it's a give and take, and so we were trying to work through that. I would say that it wasn't anything that was new or unexpected. I mean, we had that plan going into the game to help the tackles when we could and provide a little bit extra support in there. When you're on the road and on the silent count, the rushers definitely have the advantage.
There you go. That was Brian Callahan talking about the offensive line. So I've got two thoughts on the offensive line. One good one and one bad one. Let's start with the bad one. The bad one is right now, as of Sunday, it's only one game, but as of Sunday, Dylan Radins is the best offensive lineman on this football team. And that is a scary place to be in. It feels like, again, through one game, only Dylan Radins is getting the Bill Callahan bounce. Remember, the Bill Callahan will fix it. Now, that brings me to the good news. The good news with the line is that it's only the first game, and I think that as they continue to play more and they get more into the season and more into shape and more tape for Bill Callahan to coach with, they will get better. I cannot imagine that they are going to suck so bad with Bill Callahan as their coach. I cannot imagine that's going to be the case. But here's one thing that I guess I kind of noticed when I was thinking about Dylan Radins today. Because by every possible metric you could have, Dylan Radins was the best offensive lineman on Sunday. Now, it sucks that he's already hurt, but Brian Callahan says he'll play. But by the PFF grades and the pressures, he was the best. And you listen on TV, Mark Sanchez, like he's their best offensive lineman. It kind of feels like to me, Dylan Radins is the only one on this team, on the offensive line, who really has faced any adversity when it comes to finding a spot. Like, he's the only guy who has had something to prove. J.C. Latham, 5-star recruit, top 10 pick, big signing bonus, starter. There was no question from the second that he was drafted whether or not he was going to start. It was just, is he going to be right tackle or left tackle? And then they said he's going to be left tackle, period. Peter Skoronski, 4-star recruit, plays in a school nobody watches, top 11 pick, starter. And he can whiff on as many blocks as possible, and there will still be a contingency of the Titan fan base that thinks that he's the next Bruce Matthews. Lloyd Cushenberry signed for $30 million guaranteed. And Nicholas Petit-Frere, a.k.a. PT, I guess you could argue that last season there was some adversity, but considering that he missed the first 4 games because of his own personal stupidity, and he played in 3 and was terrible, and then missed the rest of the year because he got hurt and the entire offseason program and the beginning of training camp, and still came right back in to compete for a job with no competition, again, it kind of feels like the path of least resistance. And PT starting. Then there's Radins. And I got to tell you, I am rooting for Radins, who never should have been drafted in the second round. In fact, I don't know if Radins was a senior and that's why he ended up in the draft, or if Radins, declared early. I don't know how old he was, whatever. Dylan Radins should have stayed in college if he could have stayed in college, which I think he could have because he probably could have taken a COVID year. He missed an entire season because his little tiny Nowhereville school did not play football because of 2020. He didn't play in the Big Ten. He hadn't played as a rookie because he wasn't ready, and the coaches put him out there. He wasn't ready. They stuck him on the bench. They deactivated him for a playoff game. Mike Vrabel never showed confidence in Dylan Radins ever. They beat San Francisco in a game in which Radins really didn't do anything, but Vrabel asked about it after the game was over. Mike Keith, the most friendly place Vrabel could be. And Vrabel said, well, I guess I was excited to go there and shake his hand after the game. Not, hey, he played real well for us. We're proud of him. No, not that. So then he gets banished to the bench, and they give him a shot to win right tackle, but again, he just wasn't ready, and he loses the job, and he's again banished to the bench, and then he finally gets a shot again, and he tears his ACL. Poor guy. Then last year, bounced all across the line, finally finds a spot at right tackle. And for like the last 8 games of the year, minus the false starts, which he didn't do on Sunday, PT did, but he didn't. Minus the false starts, Radens was okay at right tackle last year. For the first time in his career, it was like, hey, he might actually be okay at this. Then a new coach comes in, and the new coach is like, yeah, no, we're moving him off. We're going to try Jalen Duncan, who absolutely stinks. We're going to try Jalen Duncan, so we're going to move him to guard. But we're going to get this fat guy and Sadiq Charles, who also stinks, who is going to ultimately quit the team. We're going to bring him in, and we're going to send Dylan to the bench. And over the 4 years, you've never heard Dylan Radens bitch. One time. You've never heard it. In fact, they commended him for how hard he worked to rehab his ACL. He came back ahead of schedule. He tore that thing in December, and he was back in September. The point I'm trying to make is, I think there's a difference between being gifted a spot, being entitled to a spot, and being just put through the mud and coming out stronger on the other side. And I'm not saying this is a knock on Latham, because most guys who are picked 7th go right in and start right away, just like Joe Alt with the Chargers. But there is something to be said for what Dylan Radens has been through and the way Dylan Radens is playing right now. So that's the one good thing that when it comes to this offensive line that I am really excited about, is that Radens is playing like a real football player, and that, boy, he earned it. He's been through the ringer, and he's earned it. The other guys, not exactly sure how I feel. Kevin says, not to mention this year they drafted a right tackle with the plan to move him to left. That's a no-no. You don't draft a right tackle at all. Look at the Chargers. They drafted a left tackle and moved him to right tackle. That's what the smart teams do. The dumb teams draft right tackles and move them to left. Now, again, the Browns did that with Jedrick Wills, but Tua was a left-handed quarterback, which means that the blind side, where the quarterback can't see, where the feet have to get out there faster, would actually have been right tackle in college. So there is something to that, which is why the Dolphins last year got away with Kendall Lamb at left tackle, because, again, Tua is left-handed. Tyron Smith, Bill Callahan was with the Cowboys. They moved him over, and he's going to end up in the Hall of Fame. So at least I'll give him the credit there. Here's what I'll say about Latham. I think Latham will be okay. I think Latham had a bad game. You can't give up a strip sack. You can't do that. I think Latham will be okay for whatever that works. Chris in Nashville says Rand drafted Skoronski, right? Yes. Yes, he did. Texture says, I don't think Trevor will agree with you on Peter Skoronski after watching the tape. If Peter has lost Mike Herndon, who loves Skoronski, I'm going to have a hard time believing that Trevor is not going to criticize Skoronski. Skoronski was objectively terrible. Yes, objectively. He was objectively awful. Just unbelievable. One texter says, I watched the game 3 times now. Latham did really well for a rookie's first start in the NFL. Oh, good God. Okay. Again, I'm not panicking on Latham, but you can't give up a strip sack that cost the game and then all of a sudden say, well, you see, he had a good game, Jared. 615-737-1025. There is one set of people that say, even though I was right about Skoronski and, I didn't think the Titans were going to be very good. And I think a lot of people are saying, oh, God, man, I wanted to believe you were wrong and you didn't this and you that. There is one guy who did play very, very well on Sunday. And I'm not doubting that for a second. We'll do it next. Stillman and Company, 615-737-1025 here on the program. That's 615-737-1025. And we are right to your phones. 615-737-1025 here on Stillman and Company. Let me tell the fine folks out there that you can join me, Chris Sanders, and D. Mace at John Bon Jovi's this Sunday from 9:30 to 11:30 for the pregame show. We'll break down the Titans Week 2 matchup against the Jets and give you the latest before the game. The pregame show is presented by Parman Tractor and Equipment, Sundeck Nashville, and award-winning Blue Note Juke Joint and Blue Note Crossroads Bourbon. Here you go. Here's Goodell. Here's Goodell.
In the 2024 NFL Draft, the Tennessee Titans select J.C. Latham.
Oh, no! Oh, no! God!
You know what?
No.
The liquid in Jared's glass.
Man.
Hey, do you believe
Clear,
Hey, Jared, do you
and now
believe?
it's brown.
Do you believe in Bill Callahan? Do you believe in Bill Callahan?
1,000.
Do you or do you not? But this is a question. This is a serious question. Do you believe in Bill Callahan? Jared?
That was an all-timer from the draft show last April when, again, I thought they were taking Joe Alt. I thought the Chargers were taking a wide receiver. When it happened, they took Latham. Oh, no. But I'll say this. I was impressed with J.C. Latham in training camp. Thought, he looked like what the 7th overall pick in the draft should look like at tackle, and he had a bad game on Sunday. He had a worse game, according to PFF, than Kingsley Suamataye, who was drafted in the 2nd round by the Kansas City Chiefs. And yet, I'm not worried about Latham. So a lot of people, when I am telling you that I am out on Peter Skoronski, a lot of people are saying, well, but you were wrong about T'Vondre Sweat, Jared. And I would just like to remind folks out there, no, I wasn't. When they drafted Sweat, I said, hey, I like the player because they got a big boy with fast feet. And you usually don't see people with asses that are that fat that have feet that move that quickly. So I liked it. But when every single person is going off the record and saying, yeah, I mean, this kid, he's got all kinds of issues and we can't this and we can't that, I'm going to comment on it. Like, I'm not going to sit there and do what I think a lot of other people in town do. The people that I don't even know what they did to get radio shows, but they think they're hosting a game show when they host a radio show with the and at 6:25 today we'll have Johnny Joseph on from JohnnyJoe.com, and this can be yours and more. I don't know how these people got jobs, but that's their business, not mine. So anywho, when it comes to Sweat, we took everything that everybody was saying, and we said, what is the likelihood that the Titans are the only ones that are right about this? What is that likelihood? I never once questioned whether or not T'Vondre Sweat could play. Now, I questioned whether or not he could play all the snaps, and he did play a lot of snaps on Sunday. Now, again, you had 35 minutes time of possession. When you have 30 minutes time of possession, I don't know if he can play that much. But I'm not going to put my hand in the air because I so want to say I was right to say, Latham sucks. I told you all on draft night, because I'm not saying that because I don't believe it. And when it comes to Sweat, I am still cautiously optimistic, but very encouraged by what I see. So much so that by the end of the year, if he stays on the straight and narrow, I think he can be a better player than Jeffrey Simmons. I think Jeffrey Simmons is a good player that for some reason with little old Nashville syndrome, everybody around here thinks he's a great player. And what that's done is that's made him think that he's a great player. And I think Simmons is good. I don't think he's great. I think there's a chance if Sweat can, stay away from the buffet table, I think there's a chance that he could be a great player. 615-737-1025 is our phone number. Let's go to, never mind. 615-737-1025 here on our program. There was one call I really want to get to. Instead, Latham's problem was Levis set up too deep and sometimes wandered out of the pocket. Levis would get a lot better protection if he stepped up into the pocket. I'll have to take your word for it. I haven't watched tape. I'll have to take your word for it. I will say this on the strip sack, and again, strip sacks can't happen. You are protecting the blind side of the quarterback. On the strip sack, he got beat. He got beat. And you can't have that. One texter says, you poo-poo Sweat so bad. You are the biggest revisionist of all time. Give me a break. Then you spent days busting on Rand getting a text from another GM after it was confirmed. Well, I mean, easy. Confirmed. You'll pull a muscle patting yourself on the back when you might be right. And when you're wrong, you just kind of revise it and all wash it under the rug. I did not do that with Sweat. With Sweat, I said I like the player, but I'm nervous. And I'm still nervous now. Again, like you guys think that just because somebody has really worked hard and stayed in shape, and Brian Callahan was praising Sweat the other day, you think that all of a sudden that means that this guy's going to be right, walking the right path for forever. And I hope you're right. And if Devondre Sweat turns into that superstar player, which I think he's got the potential to, I will say, hey, the Titans were right to not take the trade from the Rams, and the Titans were right to stick with Sweat. But we're one game in, just like we're one game in on Latham, and I'm not ready to sit there and tell you when it comes to J.C. Latham, I'm not going to say that it's a problem. Because even though I didn't think Latham was going to be any good, I'm not going to say it's a problem because I don't think Latham will end up being a problem. I think that'll be one where I look at it and say, I overreacted that night. I don't think he's going to be as good as Joe Alt. Joe Alt was great, for the Chargers on Sunday. But again, you couldn't pick Joe Alt. Let's go to Adam in Portland, who's up next here on the program. Thank you for calling. Go ahead, Adam.
You know what's weird, though, is it sucks that our defensive line is so good and the offensive line was so bad. Because it is. We all want it to be better. But, and the fact that you've changed your opinion about Radens is awesome. That.
Well,
that
change is a strength. He got better.
It's strong. Right. But the fact that you've come around a little bit on him, because you were harder on him than anybody. So it just gives hope to these guys that maybe they could flip that too. But the fact that they're as bad as they are right now, they need to be called out for that. They were bad. Yeah, Levis holds the ball too long. I agree. He sometimes stands in a funky spot in the pocket too. I agree with that. But the line is not nearly what it should be with that coach and all those high draft picks and all that money. And they're playing against that defense. They should be really good playing against that defense every day.
Well, I think we got to remember, first off, it is in theory, and I don't want to make excuses for the offensive line. Thank you, Adam. I don't want to make excuses for the offensive line. It's one game. It's one game on the line. And these guys, this is their first game together. And Latham's a rookie. And PT's in his third year, but didn't play last year. And Skoronski, who kind of sucks because he can't move, he is a second-year player. And so let's, again, just take that with a grain of salt. Because people say, well, you won't say that about Levis, and it was just one game. Right, because Levis's problems are competence. If I were to go on the radio and get the station sued for negligence or for, willful maliciousness and slander, if I were to get defamation, if I were to get the radio station sued for defamation, and no matter how good of a radio host I am, I'd probably have to go get somebody in there who's not going to get them sued. That I understand. With Levis, it's like that. Again, the coach said, whatever you do, don't lose the game. Anybody would say, whatever you do, don't lose us the game. And he went out there and he lost them the game. 615-737-1025 is our phone number, 615-737-1025. Sunday, it's the Jets. Who watched the Jets yesterday? Did you like what you saw? We'll do that next. Stillman Co. 1025, 1063 The Game.
Ayuk behind Bell left. They run Mason off the left side. A cutback run. Touchdown! San Francisco!
A little Mason madness on the cutback right off an unbelievable block.
So I had never heard of that running back for San Francisco yesterday, the Mason kid. Ian, had you ever heard of him?
Well, only because I have McCaffrey on my fantasy team.
So you knew who the backup was because you knew that he was going to be out. So you figured, oh, okay, I know who the backup is. So that makes sense. Okay. So I had never heard of this kid. And he ran the ball well last night. There's a lot of people that run the ball well. And then at the end of the game, they put the microphone in front of his face and it said most carries since 2016 at Gallatin High School in Tennessee. And I was like, Gallatin High School? Okay. All right. Way to go, buddy. So good for him and good for the Niners. And I got to say this. You got to tip your cap to the Niners last night. They have had more drama between Brandon Ayuk's contract and Trent Williams' contract and Ricky Pearsall getting shot and miraculously surviving and all of this stuff. And they just put a whooping on the Jets, Jets. And they did it with what's supposed to be a great Jets defense. And the Jets defense was not great. And early in the game, Aaron Rodgers was zipping the ball to the right side of the field to Garrett Wilson. And I'm like, that looks like Aaron Rodgers to me. And then all of a sudden, Ian, I don't know if you watched the whole game or not last night, but I didn't even know how it got so out of hand so fast.
I don't either. I know the San Francisco kicked a lot of field goals at one point.
It wasn't like one of these games where, it's a close game early on, and then all of a sudden, San Francisco scores, and then the Jets fumble, and then San Francisco scores again.
Well, the Jets did fumble early. Breece Hall fumbled early. Rodgers threw a pick, I know, at one point.
But it wasn't like it felt like the Jets just got walloped until you looked at the scoreboard and you were like, God, they're getting killed.
And they took their players out.
They went for it on 3rd and 1 with a running play, and then they went for it on 4th and 1 and threw it, and it got broken up, and the Jets were like, Rodgers snapped off the chin strap, and that was that.
It's kind of weird. You usually don't see that in an NFL game. Take out your starters and put in the backups, but I guess it was out of hand enough.
Tyrod needed more time. So, with that being said, last night's Jets loss was the single worst thing that could have happened to the Titans. Because any other outcome would have been better. Now, do we know what the injury situation on Sauce Gardner is? Because he went out of the game and then TV said that he wasn't hurt. But I have a hard time believing that they just took Sauce Gardner out.
From what I heard, it was Saleh said after the game, and I'm paraphrasing, I think, what I heard on Robbie in Retro this morning, that Gardner needed to catch his breath.
What?
Yeah.
Okay. As is with most things that Robert Saleh says, I don't believe.
Yeah, to answer your question, no, I don't think we have clarity on that.
Okay, so we'll keep our eye on that. But for the most part, again, this is the worst thing that could have happened to the Titans. Because what you really wanted, if you're a Titan fan, is you wanted the Jets to go just give it to the 49ers last night. You wanted the Jets to win 35-13. That's what you wanted. Because if the Jets had gone on the road to San Francisco and had beaten the defending NFC champions and had beaten them badly, all TV across the country, we talk about what happens locally here, but I'm talking about all TV across the country would be talking about how good the Jets are and Aaron's back and there's no stopping the Jets. And they're going to go to Tennessee, and I don't even know who they're playing. They're going to kill them because it doesn't matter because they're just going to smoke them. That's what would have happened. That's what you would have heard. Instead, it's what's wrong with the Jets? What's wrong with Aaron? What's wrong with Robert Saleh? What's wrong? And they're going to hear it locally, and they're going to hear it nationally, and they're going to hear it for an entire week. And so they're going to be extra motivated for this game this week against the Titans. And that's a bad thing. Unless it is a team in your division where winning and losing really matters, the most important thing when you are about to play another team is that they win the week before. because it's a week-to-week league. And teams that lose get embarrassed. And unless they just absolutely stink, they're going to get right back to the drawing board and they're going to put together the toughest effort and they're going to try their hardest and they're going to everything. And the difference between the Jets and you is they have a quarterback that you know, if they say, hey, don't go ruin the game, he won't ruin the game. If Aaron decides, hey, this week I'm locking in on the Titans, you're in trouble and you know it. I don't care how old Aaron is. And so the best case scenario would have been a Jets big win. The second best case scenario would have been a Jets close win. The third scenario would have been, a close one right at the buzzer, a bad refs call. The Jets got screwed. They should have won the game. It's not fair. That's the third best thing. And the single worst thing that could have happened was a leave no doubter, Jets get embarrassed. And that's what happened last week. And that's so depressing. And so disappointing. 615-737-1025 is the phone number. I believe I saw that the line opened at 4 for the Jets.
That's what I saw, yeah.
Go ahead and put me down. Don't put me down yet because I'll pick it on Friday. But I think you're going to see a motivated Jets team and a motivated Aaron on Sunday. 615-737-1025 is the phone number. 615-737-1025 here on the program. One texter says, like I told you, Aaron Rodgers is wash. He is a ghost of himself on a perennially bad team. We might beat them this week despite Will Levis. Yeah, I'd rather have Aaron Rodgers. I'm sorry. I'd rather have Aaron Rodgers. And not only that, Aaron Rodgers didn't play in the preseason. So yesterday was basically Aaron's preseason game. And Aaron Rodgers is a lot of things. I saw that the 49ers put vote in the back of the end zone. You know how every team has some kind of what are the ones like end racism is one of them. And there's something with love.
I saw somebody choose love. I saw one.
Choose love. That's it. Choose love. They put them in the back of the end zones. Well, the 49ers have vote in the back of the end zone. And I just could not stop thinking about Aaron Rodgers. And did Aaron would Aaron see that and get triggered? You never know with Aaron Rodgers. But anywho, when it comes to Aaron, the one thing that I don't question is his ability to play football. And now he's got a game under his belt and they got embarrassed and he's hearing the noise and I don't like that. And so I don't look at last night and say, Rodgers, he sucks. No, that's your team. And that's your quarterback who might be a problem. One text says what sucks is the Titans have been looking for the guy and they end up with Levis, who has all the physical aspects of the guy, but 0% of the mental as shown Sunday, trying to look too cute rather than taking what is given. Well, first of all, a lot of these quarterbacks have the talent to be the guy. Like Mariota had the talent to be the guy. That's why Mariota was the second pick. Jameis Winston had the talent to be the guy. A lot of these guys have the talent to be very, very good. Levis is in that group. Levis does not, by the way, have Anthony Richardson's talent. I don't know if you saw the touchdown pass that he threw. He doesn't have that. But I think what's disappointing is that everybody talked themselves out of Will Levis. Everybody, including you, because you drafted a guard ahead of drafting Will Levis. In fact, you drafted a guard who sucks and had never played guard before, and he sucks at playing guard. And you had drafted him. So you even talked yourself out of Levis, and then you talked yourself into Levis. And now it's like, okay, here it is. Like, you're stuck with Levis. It is what it is. Like, it's not going to change. It's like, okay, back to the drawing board and let's see where this goes. And what I worry about is that Levis is going to be so bad this year that it turns everybody into we'll just take a run-of-the-mill quarterback because it's better than what we had. And then you get back into the Tannehill cycle where you got an okay quarterback, but it's never going to be good enough because you'll have to beat the good quarterbacks, and you don't have one of those. One texter said, on top of all the things that happened yesterday, San Francisco didn't even have Christian McCaffrey out there last night. That's true. Add that to the list. And they still won the game. Still won the game. So disappointing. I was so hoping the Jets win. Aaron Rodgers went right down the field throwing the ball to Garrett Wilson. And I don't care what. Garrett Wilson is a dog. And when that happened, I got so excited. I got so excited that the Jets were going to win. And then they lost, and now I'm like, oh, great. I bet TV. I didn't watch TV today, but I bet TV was all talking about how bad the Jets are. And that's bad when you have to play them next. 615-737-1025 is the phone number, 615-737-1025 here on the program. Coming up next, my biggest worry for the 2024 Tennessee Titans, and it is who this quarterback would be. And it is kind of a full circle moment, right? We'll do it next. Stillman Co, 1025-1063 The Game. Let's tell all the fine folks out there to tune into 94.9 The Fan as the Sounds take on Memphis. First pitch at 6:35. We'll be at the Sounds on Thursday. Sounds Baseball on 94.9 The Fan, presented by Twin Peaks Family Leisure, 5 Points Roofing, and Busy Bee Plumbing, Heating, and Air Conditioning. Stillman Company, 1025, 1063 The Game, streaming live on Twitter, Twitch, YouTube, and Facebook Live. We are live from the Busy Bee Plumbing, Heating, and Air Conditioning Game Nashville studios. The poll is up on Twitter at Jared Stillman. Do you believe Will Levis can be the guy after Sunday? 39% say no, 36% say not ready to comment, and 25%, a quarter of you, still think yes. I do wonder if any of my friends are part of the 25%. I don't think they are. And I would be a no, because I don't think you see Dan Marino or Jim Kelly or John Elway or Peyton Manning or Tom Brady or Patrick Mahomes, or I don't think you see them do the stupid stuff Levis did on Sunday in their second seasons. And let me take you to what I think is my biggest fear for the 2024 Tennessee Titans. And my biggest fear is that Will Levis is this year's version of Desmond Ridder. That's what I fear. You guys remember Desmond Ridder when he was coming out? There was a question as to whether or not Ridder and Malik Willis and Kenny Pickett and Sam Howell and Matt Corral would go in the first round, and only Kenny Pickett did. And then on day 2, none of them went in the second round. But Atlanta took Desmond Ridder. Remember, Mike Vrabel wanted Desmond Ridder because Luke Fickell was his coach at Cincinnati. He was Vrabel's roommate at Ohio State. Tried to sell him on Ridder, and he wanted Ridder, and he couldn't get him. Atlanta drafted Desmond Ridder. Ridder opened the 2022 season as the backup to Marcus Mariota. Mariota got benched because, well, I hate to say it, but Mariota ain't that good. And then all of a sudden, Ridder had a nice little end of the season. In fact, if I take a look here at Desmond Ridder's stats at the end of the year, those were the kind of stats in 2022 that you would say, you know what? This guy, he's got a shot. He won in college at Cincinnati, took him to the college football playoff, and he's got a shot to be a guy. 2-2 as a starter, 63.5% completions, 2 touchdowns, no picks. You know, a quarterback rating of 86.4. Like that's, hey, you know, that's, we can work with that. We can do a little something there. That's not the world. Certainly you'd expect him to get better from year 1 to year 2. Like, that's not bad. And so the Atlanta Falcons, with the 7th pick, went into the year with Desmond Ridder as their quarterback. They weren't interested in Derek Carr. They weren't interested in Will Levis. They weren't interested. Well, let's draft Bijan Robinson. Let's build around Ridder. He's our guy. And the one place where I really disagreed with the Falcons last year, and I remember talking about this when it happened, was I thought the Falcons should have brought in a bridge quarterback to be the backup to Desmond Ridder. Kind of like an insurance policy, whether or not Ridder gets hurt or in case Ridder sucks. Go get a guy who started in the league who for some reason, you know, he could get a job, but he doesn't get a job. The musical chairs have stopped and he doesn't have a job. And to me, the 2 guys were Baker Mayfield and Sam Darnold. And I didn't know, you know, Baker, they were both in Carolina. Carolina had decided, screw the fact that we won a bunch of games at the end of the year with Sam Darnold. We're all in on Bryce Young. So they had made up their mind they were going with Bryce Young. And I felt like Baker and Darnold were both kind of backups, kind of starters. You knew they both had talent. They were both good. And so I said, they need to go get one of those guys. And instead, they said no. They doubled down on Ridder. They brought in Taylor Heineke, a career backup. There are some guys that are backups that are starting quarterbacks who either ran on bad luck or ended up just not being good enough to get a job. Like there are 32 other guys ahead of them in the pecking order. You know, Joe and I got in an argument today because I think Joe's, you know, he's one of these big Mason Rudolph guys. And I'm like, if you're a big Mason Rudolph guy and you think Levis sucks, you think they should make the change. And he's like, I say he's a good backup. I said, I think good backups are better than bad starters. And he said, well, that's stupid. And I said, really? Because I think Joe Flacco's better than Deshaun Watson. And Joe Flacco's a backup. But that's just me. So I thought Atlanta should have brought in a Desmond Ritter. I mean, excuse me, a Sam Darnold or a Baker Mayfield to back up Desmond Ritter. And then, hey, if Desmond loses the job, Desmond, you move on. But they didn't. Again, they had Taylor Heineke. And the week before the Titans played the Falcons, I was on Sirius XM that night for what's called the nightcap, which is from 9 to midnight. And so that Sunday, I sat there and watched every game. This was during the Titans bye week. And I watched every game. And Tampa Bay played Atlanta. And I don't know how Atlanta won, but they eked it out, barely. And I kept a closer eye on Tampa Bay Atlanta as I did every game, but a closer eye on them because obviously the Titans are playing Atlanta the next week. And it was the kind of game that if Atlanta had not found a way to win, Desmond Ritter would have been benched. Then Desmond Ritter came here. The Will Levis game, the 4 touchdowns, Desmond Ritter is why you won that game. He got benched at halftime. Taylor Heineke came in, and they were moving the ball down the field in the second half. They were moving the ball down the field the last drive. Van Jefferson drops a pass in his hands on 4th down. You win because of Desmond Ritter. And at that point, 7 weeks into the season, the Falcons knew, and the Falcons were screwed. They had a defense that was capable of making it to the playoffs. They were the 11th ranked defense in the league, and Atlanta was 6-6. Now, if Atlanta with, again, Drake London at wide receiver and Kyle Pitts at tight end and Bijan Robinson and the group they had, if they had Sam Darnold at quarterback, and I know a lot of people tell me Sam Darnold sucks, but Ian, I haven't been hearing that after the other day.
Tajay Spears?
I have not heard a lot of Sam Darnold sucks.
Oh, Sam Darnold.
I have not heard a lot of Sam Darnold sucks. I don't know where you got Tajay Spears from. I have no idea where that came from. But I have not heard a lot of that. Now that Sam Darnold looked like a competent quarterback last week.
One game. Just
it
relax.
It is one game.
But
if the Falcons were 6-6 last year, and they had better than Ritter and Heineke, they probably make the playoffs. And Arthur Smith is probably still the coach. But they didn't because they went all in on Ritter. Now you're the Titans. I don't know how good the Titans defense is. I certainly don't think they're the best defense in the NFL, which is where they are currently ranked. I think the Titans defense is probably, 11th, 12th, 14th, somewhere around there when all is said and done. I think Sunday's game was more about Caleb stinking than it was about your defense being good, but I also don't think your defense sucks. But what if you realize 7 weeks in that the quarterback that you didn't draft in the first round, like Atlanta didn't draft Ritter, but you saw a little something from at the end of last year, who's now your starting quarterback, and you didn't get a real backup to go behind him, like a legitimate guy that could play if he has to, like a Joe Flacco, like an Andy Dalton, like a Ryan Tannehill. If you go in there with Mason Rudolph as your only other option, it's the same as switching to Taylor Heineke. Could you be the Falcons? And the Falcons were and I think the Falcons have bad ownership. Like, I think Arthur Blank cares, but I don't think he's very bright. Like, I don't think he's very football smart, which is what leads you to hiring Bobby Petrino as your head coach. But he was so shell-shocked from the Desmond Ritter experience that I think they overcompensated this year by going out and getting 2 quarterbacks, paying Kirk Cousins a fortune, and drafting Michael Penix. And apparently it did not help them in week 1 against Pittsburgh. All because Arthur Smith, a guy I have a lot of respect for, was all in on Desmond Ritter. The 2023 Falcons were 11th in the league on defense, and they entered December at 6-6. They had already moved on from Ritter at that point. Again, once you take the quarterback out, and this is why I am not calling for the Titans to bench Will Levis, because once you take him out, now you've officially said, okay, we don't believe in this guy anymore. And I think that, again, when you make that decision, you really can't go back on it. Sure, you can put the other guy back in a little bit, but you can't. These aren't the old days where Jimmy Johnson can yank Troy Aikman and Steve Berline around. Well, you take Levis out, you're announcing to the world and to Levis that ship has sailed. But they had already pulled the plug on Ritter because they did it in October. But again, once you're in October, you can't do anything about it. You can't go get a quarterback. You're stuck, just like they were stuck. So I went into this year thinking, hey, best case scenario is this is your Jordan Love, where you build him up throughout the course of the year, and by the end of the year, with the reps under his belt, he is the guy. But Jordan Love didn't lose the Packers any games by throwing shovel passes outside of the pocket 15 yards down the field outside the numbers. Then there's Sam Howell, which could be another scenario. Guy had talent, didn't have a good senior year. He gets drafted, and he's got a nice arm, and he can throw for a bunch of yards, and you can kind of see it, but he's really a backup. But there's actually a benefit of having Sam Howell, because if you have Sam Howell, then you end up picking second. So you can go get Jaden Daniels. This year, you might be able to get Carson Beck or Shedeur Sanders or whoever ends up becoming the guy people want to draft, Cam Ward, whatever. You can go get that guy. But then there's Ritter, where your team is picking 8th, and you wasted a good defense, and your owner overreacted, and that's what I worry about with the Titans. Atlanta had a good team last year, and Desmond Ritter was the reason why they stunk. And the real crux of the problem was they overcommitted to Ritter, and it screwed them up ever since. And I'm worried that's you this year. That you overcommitted to the idea of Will Levis more than the reality that Will Levis could be a legitimate franchise quarterback, with the idea that, hey, he gets hurt a lot. Maybe he's not the guy. Let's bring in Joe Flacco. If we've got a good defense, we can switch it to Joe, and maybe we've got a shot. That kind of thing. But instead, you brought in Mason Rudolph. 615-737-1025 is the phone number, 615-737-1025. We will get to your phones here on the program. Stillman & Company, 1025-1063, The Game. Let's talk about Twice Daily. That's right. I love Twice Daily. Twice Daily takes great care of me, and so does their coffee shop, White Bison. I mean, if you know a White Bison, you probably haven't even thought about White Bison, but if you are looking for your local coffee shop that's got everything you need, it's White Bison. They know what you're craving this time of the year. Pumpkin. So try their pumpkin cookie frappe, their pumpkin spice latte, or their vanilla shaken espresso with pumpkin soft whip. They are irresistible. Plus, White Bison Rewards members get your 8th drink free. And while you're there, check out their sandwiches, wraps, all freshly prepared right when you order. And if you've got a sweet tooth, try their fresh baked pastries. They go perfectly with a premium coffee, expertly prepared by their roast masters. By the way, I stopped in at a White Bison on my way into the pregame show the other day because they had one right next to. I'm like, I got to go to White Bison. White Bison, finally crafted for you every day.
It's a conversation that, frankly, we'd had on the sideline, kind of at the end of the third quarter. It was like, look, they haven't done anything on offense. Our defense is playing lights out. We don't have to be exceptional on offense right now. We're trying to still win the game. We're still trying to go score, but limiting the errors is what's going to win us this game. And to have that happen was disappointing, knowing that it's just we couldn't afford that, and we're probably going to have a chance to win the game if we just punt it. And that's, again, tough lesson to learn in a moment like that loses you a game.
There's a lot of moments over the years where I've missed Floyd not being around. For instance, like watching the game last night, the Manning cast, there's Belichick on TV breaking down the game. And I just kept thinking to myself, if only Floyd were around, I could see Bill Belichick and Nick Saban doing TV. Because I think deep down inside, I think it hurt Floyd a little bit that his contemporaries were still at the top of the game, Bill and Nick. And, he was doing radio with some schlub. And it was kind of like, yeah, I'm out of the game now. I'm doing radio, and those guys had the utmost respect for Floyd when it came to football. And they would call Floyd and they'd ask questions all the time about certain things. And Floyd would watch the Alabama juniors and give them grades for the NFL draft. And Saban would pay a fortune for that so that he could sit down with the parents and say, okay, this guy should go to the draft. This guy should stay in. Bill would call Floyd all the time, stuff like that. And now they're doing TV and it's like, he's not here. But one thing that really hit me was, Ian, I would love to know what Floyd's reaction to that Levis interception would have been on Sunday. I would have loved to know, and I don't want to assume what he would have said.
I don't know what he would have said, but he definitely would have thrown something.
He would have gone nuts.
Oh, he would have hated it.
I mean, he would have. It's like, again, I don't want to put words in his mouth. This is just what I'm hearing in my head. Just the pee-wee kids know not to throw that ball. That kind of stuff. But
Pop Warner. Yeah, it's Pop Warner.
I also think because Floyd was always, a little pro-Titan, that he might say, well, whoa now, just one game. Whoa now. But I'll never forget when Mariota spiked that ball on third down against the Colts. We had an hour show at Bridgestone Arena because the Predators had a preseason game that day. So we were on from 2 to 3. So the Titans lost a terrible game against the Colts at home. Mariota was awful. That was when my dad was like texting me, like, I'm done with Marcus. I'm done. And I was like, damn, Dad, like, chill out. And the next day, the old man was like, we can keep making excuses all we want, but I'm not making excuses. Not to spike that ball on third down. No. And I wonder if that would have been him yesterday with Levis. I really wonder that, as far as I'm concerned. One texter says our phone line is driven by WilsonCountyHunting.com. One texter says Mason Rudolph is better than you think.
There's lots of Steelers fans that believe that.
Then why don't the Steelers want Mason Rudolph?
Because they're looking for the next step.
Russell Wilson?
Well, I don't know what they were thinking with Russell and Fields. It's not working out very well.
So if you remember, at the end of the year, we talked about this because the Steelers had hired Arthur. And there was a lot of talk that if the Steelers had hired Arthur, that they would take Ryan Tannehill and bring him in with them. And so the Steelers hire Arthur, and Tomlin has a press conference. And Tomlin's asked about the quarterback position, and Tomlin said at the end of the year, Kenny Pickett would return, and they would bring in competition for Kenny. And I just thought, Tannehill. That's perfect. You sign Ryan Tannehill. You tell him, hey, you're going to be the backup in training camp, but if Pickett stinks, you're the guy. And we kind of know deep down inside Pickett stinks, so you're going to probably end up being the guy. At the end, now you've got Tannehill as your quarterback. Instead, they go get Russell Wilson. And then they trade Kenny and they go get Justin Fields. But they were
It doesn't
asking
make a lot
him,
of sense.
Right. They were asking if they were going to bring Rudolph back. And they had no interest in bringing him back. So people tell me, well, the Steeler fans think Rudolph's good. Well, that's great, but the Steelers don't think Rudolph's good because the Steelers would have brought him back. It's like you're paying him any money. So don't tell me how good Mason Rudolph is or isn't, because the Steelers, the team that had him, that drafted him, that knew him, that put him third string.
It's a ceiling plan. It's a ceiling plan situation. They're looking for the next step, a ceiling play. Fields is the ceiling play. And Russell Wilson, most people would say is better than Mason Rudolph.
I'm not sure I would say, again, I don't I don't think going back to Joe's argument that bad starters are better than good backups. I do not think that Russell Wilson is any good. Like, I think
he's probably better than Rudolph.
I'm not convinced of that.
Okay.
Like, again, who would you rather have, Rudolph or Bo Nix?
To win one game, or just as the quarterback for my team?
Well, the question is, are you looking for your quarterback of the future, or are you trying to win games right now?
Well, yeah, I mean, I guess it depends on who I am, but if I'm the Titans, I'd rather have Bo Nix.
So I would argue that Rudolph is probably better right now.
Sure, right now, for sure.
And yet the same team that had no answer at quarterback said, please go away, Russell, and we'll give you $39 million to leave.
Mm-hmm.
And they said, we'd rather have that guy than bring back Mason Rudolph, who we know. That is a red flag, folks. I'm sorry. So don't tell me, you guys tell me, well, the Steeler fans think Mason Rudolph's great, but the Steelers don't. And apparently the Titans don't either, because they're not even going to think about making a change.
No, you can't make a change.
Texter says, Rudolph's good. He's not a franchise, he's not a franchise builder. We're looking for franchise builders. Tomlin would not have let Rudolph go if he were worth building around. I kind of agree there. Caleb says Fields at least got a win this week. Fields sucks. He sucks.
He did get a win.
I didn't see it, but I'm telling you, he sucks.
I don't think they scored a touchdown, though.
He sucks. Fields sucks. He's awful. And the amount of people that were like, well, should the Bears try to run it back with Fields? It's 11-28 as a starter. He stinks. Skylar says, Jared, do you think Rudolph would have won the game for the Titans against the Bears? Yes, I do. Because that exact conversation on the sideline where Brian Callahan said, hey, whatever you do, do not do something stupid. Rudolph would have gone out there and not done something stupid. There are mistakes. This kind of like protesting a game, right? I took an officiating class in college, and they talked about when you can protest a game and when you can't. And when the adjudication of a rule is incorrect, you can protest the game. For instance, if, let's say, the referees give you 4 timeouts and they fail to adjudicate the game properly, you can protest the game. If the referee thinks that's pass interference and you don't, you can't protest it. There's a difference. So there are physical mistakes that happen in games. Oh, the release point was off, or, oh, I fumbled the snap, or, oh, Velus Jones kicks the ball. Those are physical mistakes. Then there is I'm going to go try to throw this shovel pass. And you never want to be there. And I think Mason Rudolph would have not done that. That's what I'm saying. Joe texted all of us and said, now Jared says Mason Rudolph is better than Russell Wilson and Bo Nix. Boy, that's a really high bar right there, Ian. Better than Russell Wilson, who's being paid $39 million
top 10
to
backup.
not play for the Denver Broncos. $39 million. Russell sucks. Oh, crazy. Texas says, nobody wants to admit the quarterback room has been on the lower end of the league for years. Having an offense that calls for a semi-average game manager at quarterback for years has killed the Titans. One texter says, so if you're convinced that Russell Wilson stinks, then why do you put so much stock in what the Steelers do at quarterback? Because if the Steelers, who know Rudolph the best, still say, no, we'd rather have Russell Wilson, woof. 615-737-1025. Trevor joins us next. Trevor's reaction to Will Levis's week 1 performance. Remember, Trevor is traditionally more glass half full. We'll do that next. Stillman Co. 102.5, 106 for the game. Let's give something away. I'm in a good mood here. Be caller 5 right now at 615-737-1025, and you'll win a pair of tickets to see Co Wetzel at Ascend Amphitheater on Friday, September 27th. So it's been a wild week, from wondering if this was going to be the year for Will Levis to see if he'd go to Chicago and hush the doubters, to watching that shovel pass outside the numbers return for a pick six that even the butt fumbler Mark Sanchez could not handle. He couldn't handle it. Terry Bradshaw ripped Levis after the game was over on Fox. Even Brian Callahan said, we just said at the end of the third quarter, just don't do anything stupid. And yet Levis couldn't control himself. Trevor Maddich joins us on the program now, presented by Houston Clinic Orthopedics, when experience matters. Trevor, we start there. Your reaction to Will Levis's performance on Sunday against the Bears, and just how bad was it to you?
Well, if you took away a couple of plays, you could say that it was a pretty good performance, given that he was under so much pressure. He would stand and deliver some accurate throws with free runners coming right in his face just before he got hit. And so, I thought as the game started and wore on that he was doing a pretty good job given what he was being asked to do. Wasn't making any big mistakes. You don't fight the fight you want. You fight the fight you're in. And in this game, the fight Levis was in was the defense was playing lights out, and his offensive line wasn't giving him pass protection. So the most likely way they would blow a 17-3 halftime lead would be make mistakes. Well, when you just talk about Levis's mistakes, I'm sure you've talked a lot about that pick six, which was absolutely horrendous.
I think it's the worst interception I've ever seen in my life.
He had a blitz coming from the right. Okay. So he moved over to the left into the grasp of the defensive end who was being blocked out there. And while he was going down, instead of just eating the sack, he flipped the ball into the hands of a defender who then took it for that touchdown. And the thing about that was that it was a tight game. It was a 1-point game at that time. It was 17-16. Titans were leading. The defense was playing well. The only reason it was that close was because of special teams. And special teams, the punt block in return for a touchdown. And so the fight that Levis was in was to be conservative and don't make the big mistake. And instead, when things broke down, he decided he wanted to show the whole world that he was Patrick Mahomes too, and ended up making a horrendous play.
Trevor, what do you make of the fact that the coach came out and said, all we said at the end of the third quarter was, don't do anything stupid. Let the defense win the game. And then Levis, after hearing that from the coach, goes out there and does the stupidest thing imaginable. And I would say add that on with the fact that he's had a coach last year in Mike Vrabel who begged him to slide. He wouldn't slide. He got hurt twice. He still won't slide. And he's taking the hits, and now they show him on the sideline, and he's got that heat pack on his back, and it's inevitable he'll get hurt at some point this year because he won't slide. He won't protect himself. He gets hit in the preseason. He gets hit, just doesn't care. And I almost think it's like his brain clicks off. When the game steps up, what do you make of the fact that he literally defied the coach from the one thing the coach told him to do?
I think he just looks at himself in the mirror and says, hey, look how I'm built. I can't be hurt. I don't need to slide. Look how strong my arm is. Look how far I can throw it. I can make plays even when things are breaking down. Well, sometimes you have to because you're behind in the fourth quarter and you've got to take chances. But, defying the head coach, I think was the right way to put it, Jared. I mean, I don't think he made a decision in the heat of the moment and said, my coach told me to play it conservatively, but I'm going to defy him and I'm going to try to. I don't think he did that.
Yeah, this isn't Dan Marino or Aaron Rodgers that gets the play and it says, okay, we're not running that.
Right, but here's what he does need to do. He needs to always have an emergency plan B at top of mind before a play starts, a pass play. So if he gets an unblocked blitz from the right, what's he going to do? If he gets an unblocked blitz from the left or the middle, what's he going to do? If his primaries are covered and the pocket is squeezing, what's he going to do? Where's my safe outlet? If I don't have a safe outlet, where is it most likely, based on what I see pre-snap, that I'm going to be able to move and, get into open space? And if I can't do that, turn it and throw it away right now. You need to know what your emergency plan is when everything breaks down. And it was breaking down on that play for Will Levis. The blitz forced him to flush left. He's into grasp. He's on the way down. And what's his emergency plan B when that blitz comes unblocked from the right? Well, move to the left. But now if you end up getting pressured from the left as well, what's your emergency plan B if you don't have a clean way to make a play that's not risky? Either throw it away or eat the ball and take the sack. You're up 17-16. Your defense is playing lights out. But it was not in his mind to have his emergency plan B. It was in his mind to make a play no matter what, no matter how bad of a position the defense put him in, he still was going to make a play. That was his problem there. It was a mental mistake.
Trevor Matich is with us, presented by Houston Clinic Orthopedics, when experience matters. So how much of a red flag is it, Trevor, that this isn't year one for Will Levis? This is year two. And so it's one thing to not have the plan B year one as a rookie when you're just trying to survive out there, but this is year two. How big of an issue is that for you?
I'm not ready to give up on him. There were things that I really liked about him in year one when his offensive line was horrific and he had no protection, and yet he kept getting up and kept delivering balls that most quarterbacks wouldn't even try. Now, that's not that they were dangerous balls. It's that they were throws that required him to take a big hit, and he willingly took it, and he completed a lot of those throws. I liked that. The reason I'm not really willing to, pull the plug on him now is that all you have to do is dial him back. I mean, if you've got a car that's a clunker, that's all held together by chewing gum and rust, and you ask it to go 140 miles an hour in a 55, well, guess what? It's not going to happen, no matter what you do. But if you've got a car that can go 200 miles an hour and it keeps on getting pulled over for speeding, and you just say, look, don't go so fast, then that's easier to do. You slow it down rather than ask it to do more than it's capable of. Compare that to Levis. What was his biggest mistake? And there were some other mistakes, but his biggest mistake was that pick six. And it wasn't that he tried to do something he wasn't able to do. It's that he tried to do way too much, because he does have the physical capability to deliver the ball under pressure. And what he needs to learn is dial it back. Don't do that, the things that we talked about. If he doesn't learn that lesson and he keeps making mistakes like that, where he tries to do too much when he doesn't have to, when the defense has the best of the play, then pull the plug on the guy, because you can't trust him mentally. But if he learns that lesson and dials it back and fight the fight he's in instead of the fight he wants, then all those other good physical attributes and that mental toughness will end up being the dominant part of his play, and he'll eliminate big, massive mistakes like that. It's not hard to eliminate that kind of a mistake. The question is, does he have the temperament to do it, to eliminate it? We talk about Mahomes all the time, that in college, he would go out and, try to make a play, a home run every single time. When he got into the NFL, he learned that sometimes he needed to be Patrick Mahomes of college, and he could make a play, or he could at least try, because of the circumstances in the game. But most of the time, you don't see him being reckless. When he does something magical, most of the time, it's not reckless. It wouldn't be seen as that. That's what Levis needs to learn to do. And it's easier to dial him back than it is to push him to something he's not capable of.
So I vehemently disagree with pretty much everything you just said. But my big question mark is really, when it comes to that, okay, he's 25 years old. He's the oldest quarterback in the division. He's a second-year player. And you're saying, well, if he can learn to not do the stupid stuff. And I've just decided, Trevor, that he's never going to learn that. Like, he's not going to change. And the sliding is a perfect example of that. He gets into the league last year and he's taking shots, and Mike Vrabel's like, we've shown him how to slide. We've gone over it with him. And then he goes out there the next game and he takes another hit and he gets up and he does the first down, because I did it. And then Vrabel says, well, we showed him shots of guys getting hurt. So now we'll show him shots of guys not getting hurt and hope that he'll do the opposite or something. I don't know. And then he gets a new coach and he comes in the first preseason game and he takes a big crack. And the coach says, don't do that anymore. And he says, I got to not do that anymore. And there he goes in the first game and he's doing it again. He's not going to change, Trevor. So at 25 years old, in his second year in the league, how long do we wait until we realize this guy is not coachable?
Well, we wait until there's somebody better, don't we? And
well, that won't happen this year because Mason Rudolph is the backup quarterback. Though you do like Mason.
Well, I actually, I do like Mason Rudolph a lot more than other people do. But as far as Levis goes, it is a matter of just watching him now from a fan standpoint, and the media standpoint, and coaches actually, because what he needs to get better at is really clear, and it is really simple. And for a guy that's so fiery and competitive, it's hard for him to do because he wants to make a play every single time, right? He needs to dial it back. But we'll see him in the next game against the Jets, and then we'll see him again, hopefully, against the Packers the following week. And so we'll see if he limits those mistakes. There's cliches in football. One of them is most football games are not won, they're lost. They're not won by big plays. They're lost by big mistakes. And so coaches always talk about avoiding those mistakes. That pick six was an easy mistake to avoid, just super easy mistake to avoid. So we'll see. We'll see what he does going forward. It's really up to him because it is within his grasp to fix this easily. I would just have him look at tape of Tom Brady. When Tom Brady was pressured in the pocket, a lot of times he would just sit down. He would have a seat because he'd realize, okay, well, I'm not the most mobile guy in the world. And if I try to break out of this and make a play anyway, more than likely I'm either going to get smashed or I'm going to get the ball stripped out of my hand. So I'm just going to sit down and then I'll just run the next play. Now, sometimes he had to try to make a play because of the circumstances late in the game. Okay. But when he wasn't in that desperate situation, Brady, the greatest of all time, conceded that the defense won this play and then protected himself and the ball to run the next play or let the punter punt and run the next series. Levis needs to learn that lesson.
Trevor Maddox is with us on the program. Trevor, it sounds like you weren't huge on the offensive line. We'll get to that coming up next, Trevor's reaction to that, and we look ahead to the Jets game with Trev, as always, presented by Houston Clinic Orthopedics, when experience matters, and I do have a hot college football take for Trevor as well. We'll do it next. Stillman Co. 102.5, 106 for the game. Trevor Maddich is with us, presented by Houston Clinic Orthopedics, when experience matters. Trevor, I got to say, I'm disappointed at how optimistic you are about Will Levis, given the fact that I am out. I am out as far as he could be an NFL quarterback. Could he be a star NFL quarterback? No, because star NFL quarterbacks don't do what he did on Sunday, but in the second year. But you kept bringing up the offensive line, Trevor. So give me your assessment of the Titans' offensive line Sunday, and should we be worried about where they're at right now?
I would say that the offensive line improved from heinous to awful. It was an awful performance by the offensive line. They did some very good things run blocking, although they just flat out missed some guys at the point of attack. Pass protection was just terrible. I mean, just terrible. I mean, in the late in the first half, Levis threw a beautiful touchdown pass in the back of the end zone to Chig. It was an 18-yard touchdown pass plus another 10, into the end zone to the end line. And Latham, J.C. Latham, left tackle, he just got beat inside. Levis stood there, delivered the ball, hit as he threw. It was one of the things I liked about Levis, but it's like, don't get beat inside. If you're going to get beat outside, right? And there were so many times in this game where I took a note that there was a free runner because somebody was unblocked or they just beat their blocker, their offensive lineman immediately. That happened to Skoronski a lot. It happened to Latham a few times, right? And that left side of the line, especially, I expected to be the strength of the line, and I thought the right side was stronger over the course of the game.
Trevor, I think Skoronski stinks. I think that it was a bad pick. I think that he's got what I am calling him fat feet, because I think he's got feet that are just stuck in cement. I don't think he can move. I don't think he can pass block. What happens is Titan fans will see him get out, say when he's, out in space on a screen or when they pitch the ball off to the left, and he might get out there and knock somebody out like a linebacker or something. And they'll say, see, Jared. But again, we're talking about a guard with the 11th overall pick, and he cannot pass block. I'm ready to hit the panic button. I'm ready to use the B word, bust, on Skoronski. Your thoughts?
I'm not ready to call him a bust yet, but everything that you said, he displayed in this opener. He couldn't pass block. His feet were slow. And that's one of the reasons that he got beat. I mean, the book on him now, from a pass rush standpoint, is make him move his feet. In other words, line up on his outside when he steps out there to block you in a pass protection, loop inside and make him slide back in to get you, or vice versa, right? Because he's not reacting fast enough. I think he's got fast enough feet. I mean, he played left tackle in the Big Ten out in space and was phenomenal as a pass protector there. But things happen faster inside a guard. And he's got to be able to move those feet faster. And I think a lot of that has to do with recognition. But I mean, you talk about, just the impact of this, with just over a minute to go, Levis threw an interception, right? They were down 7. They were trying to come back. It was 4th and 10. Levis was trying to hit a receiver to the right, and he ended up throwing up a prayer as pressure came up the middle. Well, why did pressure come up the middle? They had 7 guys in the block. The running back went to help chip for the left tackle. The tight end helped the chip for the right tackle. So they were counting on the center guard inside to hold up. And Skoronski got beat cleanly. The defensive tackle lined up to his outside. So he's left guard. So it was on his left shoulder, kind of in that left gap. Skoronski tried to go out there to get him. That defensive tackle looped to the inside, threw a little move on him. Skoronski was completely short-circuited and discombobulated, and he came right up the middle and hit Levis as he tried to throw on 4th down, right? That was just a one-on-one fail by Skoronski. And if it was the only time, I'd say, well, okay, good move by that guy. But you saw that flaw of failure or inability to react with his feet to what he sees with his eyes. That happened too often in this game.
Trevor, are you worried at all about J.C. Latham?
No, I think he did some very good things in this game. I think he got he got lost in space a couple of times as a new left tackle and a new starting left tackle as a rookie. I thought you could see where he can be corrected. The things can get better. Like he gave up a big hit on the quarterback one time when he took a pass set. It was a good pass set. And then he lingered inside. He stepped back in to put his inside hand up to help Skoronski on his guy. And then he went back outside. And then it was too late. His edge rusher kept going full speed and got around the corner. Right. So those kinds of things on how to manage space and how to manage angles are different on the left side than they are on the right side where he played in college. And they happen a lot faster on, at the NFL level. And I think that the mistakes I saw him make are mistakes that are more easily correctable than the ones I saw Skoronski make.
Trevor Maddich is with us on the program. Why can Will Levis not hit Calvin Ridley on the deep ball? And how concerning is that they couldn't do it in training camp and they can't do it in the game?
Yeah, he missed him, didn't he, on a long play down the left sideline?
Twice.
Yeah, really. Yeah, and and Ridley was there to make it happen, and he missed him. I think it was a problem in camp. So he wasn't able to really connect with Ridley and really connect down the field too much, as much as I thought he should be able to anyway in the preseason. But how much of a problem is it? Well, if you give him some grace, you could say that it's a new system with new timing and some new footwork and things like that, and he needs to just have some time. But when a guy's wide open, you need to put the ball up in the air so he can run under it, no matter what that timing might be. That's a problem. And the thing about Ridley is that he targeted Ridley 7 times, only completed 3 of them. Right? That's a problem. Ridley did make some great plays, though, and he did have a couple of moments of chemistry with Levis. There was a key play where Ridley ran a curl on the left side, and there was a zone defender in front of him. And Ridley saw that, so he just moved inside a little bit to create an open throwing lane for Levis. The protection was good, and Levis saw him doing that and then drilled him between the zone defenders. It was really good communication or expectation and result between quarterback and receiver. So you can see where there's potential there. But at some point, you got to hit those deep passes, or else the defense is going to come up and gum up the short passes in the running game.
Trevor, how good is the good news with T'Vondre Sweat? What'd you think of him? And are we ready to say, hey, this was a great pick by the Titans and he is ready for prime time?
I think I wouldn't say it was a great pick yet. I mean, I like the pick. I really do. But will it work out? You need a little bit more time, right? This being the first time. And early in the game, he got pushed around a little bit. It was like he was a spectator, and while he was sort of looking around, he was getting pushed by double teams. But then he settled in. And what impressed me about him were 2 things. One is that he then became just a force in the running game. Not that he made tackles, but that, there was one play that comes to mind where the offense ran the ball to the left, and he just stuffed the center and then came down the line with the center. And so he and the center were blocking a cutback lane for the running back, and everybody else just collapsed on both sides of the obstacle that Sweat created by flowing down the line, controlling the center. And it was just a beautiful thing. The other thing that impressed me about Sweat was pass rush. He's not supposed to be a good pass rusher, but he got some really good pressures by throwing some really good moves, some swim moves and clubs and things like that, where he just came clean immediately on his pass rush, and bam, the quarterback all of a sudden sees 360 pounds bearing down on him. He didn't always finish the play, but he messed up the play. And I thought that was great. One time he actually took the offensive lineman trying to block him and just tossed him. I mean, they had the nerve to try to block him with one guy on pass protection. So he said, okay, fine. So he took that offensive lineman, he just tossed him aside like he was a little kid, and he just ran up toward the quarterback. And so I thought that it was a really effective first outing for Sweat.
Trevor Maddich is with us. I have a hot college football take for you, Trevor, and that is I would not pick them to beat Georgia, nor would I pick them to beat Texas if they were to be that good. I probably wouldn't pick them to beat Ohio State. But I think Tennessee's probably a top 5 team in the country, and I think they're a national title contender with their quarterback and with their defense. I know NC State stinks. They stunk against some Scarbini State school in week 1 and barely won, and they're not very good, and I don't think they're going to be very good this year, but I think Tennessee is legit. And in all these years that I've been doing this, I don't think I've ever this early in the season, I predicted them to go 10-2 a couple of years ago, and they went 10-2, but I think this is kind of the first time where I am really looking at Tennessee and saying, by the hype, they're legit. I think they can beat anybody. They probably won't beat Georgia, and I wouldn't pick them to beat Texas, but I think they'll beat Oklahoma. I think they can beat Alabama. I think they're legit. Your thoughts?
There are two things I think that come to mind that lead me to say, yeah, that's not a terrible hot take. There's a lot to that. One is that the secondary played so well. I mean, from last year's secondary alone, they lost 9 guys to the portal, 1 to the draft, and 1 to injury. So they have a whole bunch of new guys, homegrown and portal guys that had to come in and come together very quickly. And Grayson McCall, the quarterback for NC State, is a grizzled veteran that knows what to do with the football against an inexperienced secondary. And they had him locked down. I mean, locked down. So that's good news. The other good news is that Nico's running the offense with good pace and good accuracy. And remember, when Hendon Hooker was running this offense and it was just humming at its peak a couple of years ago, he had 2 things. He had accuracy down the field, and he ran very quickly. He was able to get the play, get it communicated, and get the ball snapped so fast that the defense struggled to react and struggled to really, get their wits about him. Those 2 things together on offense become a force multiplier, the accuracy down the field and the speed of the operation. So you can actually move the ball against teams that might have better talent than you. And this Tennessee team has tremendous talent on offense, and their defensive line might be the strength of the whole team. So, I mean, you put all that together, and I can't say that you're wrong, Jared.
Trevor Maddich, as always, presented by Houston Golden Gore. The Phoenix Experience matters. Trevor, great stuff. We'll talk next week.
Thanks, Jared.
Yep. I wouldn't pick them to beat Georgia. I wouldn't pick them to beat Texas. But that doesn't mean that they can't beat them. I think Tennessee is legit. I think Tennessee has a good coach. I think Tennessee has a quarterback. I think Tennessee's got a defense. I'm not ruling Tennessee out of winning the national title. And Ian, over the years, I have pushed back when it comes to Vol fans that think they're going to win everything by 90. We're 2-9, but we're going to win this next game by 75. I've pushed back.
Mm-hmm.
I'm not pushing back on this. This is a good team.
Yeah.
It's a good team.
They got some good guys on the defensive line, too.
Defense is legit. 615-737-1025. So I had a research project yesterday that we didn't get to that I want to reveal now. And I've actually even dug in a little further. For those of you out there that think Will Levis can still be a star quarterback, I took 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10 star quarterbacks and their season opener of their second year and compared them to Will Levis. What were the results? Next, Stillman Co. 102.5, 106 for the game. Stillman Company, 102.5, 106.3 The Game, streaming live on Twitter, Twitch, YouTube, and Facebook Live. We are live from the Busy Bee Plumbing, Heating, and Air Conditioning Game Nashville studios. So again, we're running a poll on Twitter at Jared Stillman, or I guess X. I mean, I think it's stupid to call it X. I know it's its name, but again, the question is, do you still believe Will Levis can be the guy after yesterday? 25% of you say yes. 38% say no, 37% say not ready to commit. And I am ready to say no, because the first game of year 2 was such a disaster. Not just a disaster in terms of his ability to play quarterback, but a disaster in terms of his ability to think while playing quarterback. But many people are saying, because again, people want to be optimistic, they want to be hopeful, they want to believe that the guy they have is the guy. A lot of people say, it's just one game, Jared. It was just one game. As if Will Levis went up to bat and struck out 4 times against Randy Johnson. It's just one game. He'll go up to bat tomorrow. Not that Will Levis sat there, didn't recognize the blitz, which is an important job of a starting quarterback, took the snap with a 1-point lead in the 4th quarter after his coach had told him on the sideline, don't do anything stupid, punt the ball, and he ran out and he shoveled past it, and even the butt fumbler, Mark Sanchez, as Levis tried it, said, oh no. So I did a little research because, again, facts do not care about your feelings. And so I wondered, how bad, comparatively speaking, was Will Levis's first game of his second season compared to good quarterbacks? You know, if it's, maybe Levis can't be Dan Marino, but he can be an okay starting quarterback. Well, I could just go get Ryan Tannehill and go get okay starting quarterback play. The hope was that Levis was going to be better than Ryan Tannehill. So how bad was it, comparatively speaking? Because, again, I don't know, people will tell me that, oh, no, Tom Brady throws those interceptions. He doesn't. But that's their thing. And, again, I don't know if this is start number 17 for some of these guys, if it's start number, in the case of Tom Brady and Brett Favre, their first start of their second year was their first career start. Will Levis, in a loss, was 19 of 32 for 127, 1 touchdown, and a 52.5 quarterback rating. Remember that number, 52.5. Dan Marino's first start of his second season, 21 of 28, 311 yards, 5 touchdowns, and again, 52.5 for Levis, 150.4 for Dan Marino. I guess Dan had figured it out by his second year not to throw a shovel pass 15 yards down the field outside the numbers. Troy Aikman, in a win, 13 of 29, 193, so not as good as Dan, 1 touchdown, 64.3, still better than Levis. Peyton Manning, 21 of 33 in a win, 21 of 33, 284, 2 touchdowns, 85.9, better than Levis's 52.5. Tom Brady, and if you remember, Tom Brady was carried by the defense his first year. Tom Brady, in a win, 13 of 24, 168, no touchdowns, 79.6. It was a win, and that was his first career start. Brett Favre, 14 of 19 for 210 yards, 2 touchdowns, and a quarterback rating of 144.6. Drew Brees. Remember that Drew Brees, the Chargers, they drafted Phillip Rivers because they didn't believe in Drew Brees. Drew Brees was a slow starter. If there is the possibility of, hey, he got off to a rough couple of years, but then he blossomed, it's Brees. Drew Brees in a win, 15 of 19, 160, 2 touchdowns, 136.8. Again, Levis, 52.5, 136.8. How about Mahomes? This was his second career start. He started the last game of the 2017 season. 2018, Mahomes, in a win, 15 of 27, 256, 4 touchdowns, and a 127.5 rating. Justin Herbert. Again, we're talking Marino and Brady and Mahomes and Brees and Favre. Those are all Hall of Famers. Herbert, jury's still out on. In a win, 31 of 47, 337, 1 touchdown, 85.2. How about Jordan Love? Again, I feel like I keep lowering the bar. How about Jordan Love? First start last year. This was his third year because he didn't start a game his second year. In a win, 15 of 27, 245, 3 touchdowns, 123.2. CJ Stroud, a contemporary. In a win, 24 of 32, 234, 2 touchdowns, 115. Most of these guys have quarterback ratings over 100. Every single one of those guys passed for more than Will Levis's 127. And not all of them threw anywhere near as many completions. Again, Levis had 19. Aikman had 13. Brady had 13. Favre had 14. Breeze had 15. Mahomes had 15. Love had 15. Levis completed more passes and threw for less yards. Dan Marino threw for 2 more passes 30 years ago and threw for 311 in an era where a 3,000-yard passer was a big deal. Then I took 2 other quarterbacks. Baker Mayfield, because we remember the first game of Baker's second season, and Mariota. Again, Levis was 19 of 32, 127, 1 touchdown, and 52.5 as a quarterback rating. Mariota's first game of his second year, 25 of 41, 271, 2 touchdowns, 86.5. Significantly better than Levis. And Baker Mayfield, in that game where the Titans went into Cleveland, Jim Nantz and Tony Romo called it, with Odell Beckham and Jarvis Landry, and Derrick Henry put a foot up their ass. Baker threw a pick 6 in that game. It was a disaster. Freddie Kitchens was throwing a temper tantrum on the sideline. Baker, 25 of 38, 285, 1 touchdown, and a quarterback rating of 64. So even in that horrendous Cleveland Browns season opener Baker Mayfield performance, it was still better than Will Levis. Threw for more yards and had a better quarterback rating. Woof. And before you say that it's not fair to compare him to Dan Marino and Peyton Manning, let me ask you this. Isn't that what we were hoping for? Did anybody say, hey, let's give Levis a try and let's hope that maybe he can be Derek Carr? Because if you wanted Derek Carr, you could just go get Derek Carr. If you wanted Desmond Ridder, you could go get Desmond Ridder. If you wanted Sam Darnold, and I like Sam Darnold, but again, we're shooting for better than Sam Darnold. You could have just gone and gotten Sam Darnold. In fact, if you just wanted average, you could have gone and gotten Ryan Tannehill back. But no, you wanted a star. We wanted a star. And no matter what argument you want to make to debunk this, because again, your feelings do not like these facts, his performance for his first start of his second year do not track with other star quarterbacks. Period. Sorry. And by the way, I would just let you know that Levis's performance outside of the Atlanta game last year, kind of similar to this performance. Now, his rating was a little bit higher and his yards were a little bit more. He threw for about 222 a game last year outside of the Atlanta game. Threw for 1 touchdown and 1 pick. And I'm not counting the second interception. That was at the end of the game. So, again, 1 interception. Levis last year, taking out the Atlanta, averaged 18 completions. On Sunday, he had 19. He averaged 32 attempts, he averaged 31 attempts. He threw for 32. So a little bit more on the yardage and the 1 last interception, but I'm not sure wasn't that far off. This is the first game of year 2. You know what the speed of the game is. You know what the expectations in the league are. You know what defenses are trying to do. Year 2, I'm not saying it's time to take over the team. I'm not saying it's time to be the franchise guy, to be the force multiplier. I'm not saying to be the league MVP like Lamar Jackson or Patrick Mahomes. But again, all of these guys played better. Every single one of them. Marino, Aikman, Manning, Brady, Favre, Breeze, Mahomes, Herbert, Love, and Stroud. Every single one of them played better than Levis. Mariota played better than Levis, and we know he's not the guy. And Baker Mayfield played better than Levis, and he's on his third team. Woof. 615-737-1025 is our phone number. 615-737-1025. And Joe Rexroad this morning had a doozy. And I didn't hear any of this yesterday, but I'm starting to hear it today. And we'll get to that next. 615-737-1025, which is our phone number, 615-737-1025. Stillman and Company, 1025-1063, The Game.
Caleb Williams. No offense pretty much in this game, none by the rookie. But Will Levis, the quarterback for the Tennessee Titans. Boy, this with your team up, winning the football game, you cannot give this ball up. It's just a really not, well, I don't want to say stupid, but that was extremely stupid. 43-yard interception returned by Steve. I know I said it because it should be said. 24-17. You don't do that. You just don't do that when you're winning on the road in a tough game like that.
There you go. That was Terry Bradshaw, who was like, oh, my God, I cannot with that. I still wonder if Terry Bradshaw went into work that day knowing who the quarterback of the Titans was. So once again, we went over the first start of the second year for, again, star quarterbacks, because that's what we want this to be, right? We want Levis to be a star. We don't want Levis to be Ryan Tannehill. We had Ryan Tannehill. Marino, Aikman, Manning, Brady, Favre, Breeze, Mahomes, Herbert, Love, Stroud, they all played better. All significantly better than Will Levis's 52.5. Come on now. So, again, my big takeaway, Levis might be able to be a starting quarterback in the NFL or a backup quarterback in the NFL, or, he might be able to make it. I don't know. Blake Bortles was a backup for a little bit. He might be able to make it. But as an elite quarterback, which again is what we were hoping for, the force multiplier, the Patrick Mahomes, the CJ Stroud, the Joe Burrow, the Justin Herbert, yeah, no. And so, again, the guy that I look at when I compare Levis, again, just thinking when they drafted him and how his senior season went and everything else, Dan Marino, right? Dan Marino had the size, he had the arm, but he didn't have a great last year at Pittsburgh. And Dan Marino, there was a lot of talk about Dan was interested in other stuff off the field, and Dan didn't take football seriously, and there were some rumors that Dan did drugs, which Dan didn't do. And so there was all this off the field stuff, and all these teams passed on him, including the Steelers, who had Terry Bradshaw at the end of his career, and the Steelers passed on Marino. Everybody passed on Marino. Who was it? Was it Tony Eason was taken before him? Todd Blackledge was taken before him. Ken O'Brien was taken before him. He was the last quarterback taken in 83. And he ended up, him and Elway ended up becoming the two best. And I wondered, could Levis be that guy? So Marino, again, has always kind of been the gold standard. If one day of the history turns how great would this be? Well, I've decided he's not Dan Marino, and he's not going to be Dan Marino. And so that came up this morning on Robbie and Rex Road, and Joe went to a well that should not even be given oxygen. Play the cut.
Week 1, obviously off to a bad start for Will Levis. Some people already out on him. Some people were never in on him. And some people have now determined that he's not going to be Dan Marino, as we heard yesterday on this station as well.
Can you explain that to me, by the way?
I mean, I think his point is, based on what you've seen from Levis, that he's never going to be like one of the elite guys. I guess his point.
Okay, so it's not specific to Marino as a comparison.
Yeah.
Like that.
I mean, he's just kind of throwing it out there. Like,
gotcha.
Do you ever see John Elway throw an interception like that, or Dan Marino throw an interception like that?
Okay, I said this. I will say this on that, though. I said this to you the other day. We were in the text. I said, Brett Favre has made plays like that. I promise
There's no doubt.
you. So, I mean, Brett Favre is a Hall of Fame quarterback, Hall of Fame Steeler from the poor, but a Hall of Fame quarterback. And that guy, I bet you he had a handful of plays that were in the realm of that.
Okay. So, first of all, Ian, I hope Joe doesn't get sued over that, because Brett Favre has sued people for what seems to me, I want to make sure I include that in there, to have reported the truth on Brett Favre stealing from the poor. But again, I don't know. I have no idea.
Mm-hmm.
But, he said that pretty definitively, and Brett Favre has been known to sue people for that. He sued Pat McAfee, he sued Shannon Sharp. So be careful, Joe. But also, Brett Favre, really? Like, first of all, we compared him. Favre's first career start, Favre threw for less completions and more yards and more touchdowns. Favre had a 144.6. Levis had 52.5 as a quarterback rating there. First start of their second season. Brett Favre did dumb things on the field. I think we can all agree. I mean, to me, the most egregious was that interception he threw when he was with the Vikings in the NFC title game and basically cost them a trip to the Super Bowl. But I still don't think Brett Favre ever did anything as stupid as, the blitz is coming, I'm going to not read it, and then I think with a 1-point lead in the fourth quarter, I'm going to make a Leroy Jenkins play and try to shovel past the ball 10 yards down the field outside the numbers. I've never seen Brett Favre do that. Brett Favre had unbelievable natural ability. And Brett Favre would trust his arm to do things that other guys couldn't do. And I'm not saying that at times it wasn't reckless, because it was. But I don't think it's because Favre wasn't thinking. I just think that was part of Favre's game. Favre went in it like, hey, this is what you get with me. I'm going to hit home runs and I'm going to strike out, but I'm swinging for the fences. Levis does not play that way. Levis panicked and his brain shut off, and he did the stupidest thing you could possibly do. I don't think Favre's brain shut off when he was playing quarterback. I just think Favre looked at it like, I can make the throw, so I'm going to try. But the second point I have got to address when it comes to using Brett Favre as the example. Favre is the strongest exception to what is a most obvious NFL rule. If you've got a quarterback that is careless with the football and does a bunch of dumb stuff with it, you're not going to win, period. And the one guy in the history of the league that defies that is Favre. He's the one guy who's like, hey, cowboy up, baby. I'm going to fire that ball in there, and we might lose because of it, but we also might win. He's the one guy. And when we take Favre on one hand and we say, well, Favre could do it, and Levis is sitting right there as your guy, I want you to think of every other quarterback who has been careless with the football in their career that has ended up being Nathan Peterman. Every other quarterback who has ended up being Blake Bortles. Every other single one of these quarterbacks that had a cannon for an arm and ended up being Jeff George. Because that's what's infinitely more likely than the possibility that Will Levis's stupidity on the football field, because I think Levis is a smart guy in real life, but Levis's stupidity on the football field could equal Brett Favre. Again, I want him to be a star too. But he doesn't do what stars do. He does what Nathan Peterman does. He does what Zach Mettenberger does. And that's a huge problem. Also, in all seriousness, using Favre as the example, Ian, don't you think Brett Favre would have hit Calvin Ridley once down the field?
Well, maybe.
I know throwing the deep ball wasn't Brett Favre's problem.
Yeah.
Like, I'll tell you right now, I guarantee you.
Well,
Favre
I think they
would've...
said later in this conversation, like, hey, yeah, Favre might make, kind of a reckless play here and there, but he'll also make some plays that Levis did not make good-wise in this past game.
Yeah, again.
So there's more of a balance there.
You're using Favre as the example, and again, Favre's stats in the first game of his much better. Favre, when you're using him as the example, like you're grasping at straws. This is the one guy that could do it. Like the one guy on the planet. That's like saying, well, LeBron James could. Yeah, LeBron's the one guy that can do that. You can't. I remember when Shane Foster played basketball at Vanderbilt. Shane Foster used to bring the ball behind his head and cock it for a three-point shot. It was the ugliest looking three-point shot I'd ever seen. And he hit nothing but net almost every time he shot. I would never tell somebody else to shoot the ball like Shane Foster. 615-737-1025 is our phone number, 615-737-1025 here on the program. What one MVP quarterback had to say about Will Levis's performance, not Terry Bradshaw, but another one, a more modern one. We'll get to that next. Stillman and Company right here, 1025, 1063 The Game.
couple things really jump out to me, Bruce. I said this before the game. Will Levis, footwork and accuracy go hand in hand, and he had a problem with it at Kentucky. Last year, he completed 58% of his passes, which was the worst in the NFL. And I think we saw that again yesterday. The feet are bad. His eyes are all over the place, and they've got to get that corrected. I thought Bill Callahan, I'm not talking about Brian because I know Bill's in the ear of Brian. I thought they had a really nice plan early. Tried to help him get the ball to his hands quickly, did a good job running the football. And I thought that they had just a really nice start to the game. But in the second half, they just made mistakes. Will Levis on the interception, Bruce, that's one you have to learn from. He's getting flushed from the pocket. He's moving to his left. He's getting taken to the ground. He flips it out there trying to make an impossible play, and you get yourself in a pick six situation. That's when, sometimes the best play, the only play is to throw it away and live for another down. He's got to learn not to be Superman out there.
There you go. That was Rich Gannon talking about Will Levis. And he's like, he's got to figure out he can't be Superman out there. And we had a caller yesterday that called in that was like, you know what? I don't think he's trying to play hero ball, which is what Gannon's assuming. He's saying, like, hey, he plays panic ball. And I agree. I think that mind just clicks off. Like, when the going gets tough, Levis just starts acting crazy, whatever it may be. By the way, what'd you make of Gannon saying, I'm talking about Bill Callahan, because he's in the ear of Brian. Remember, Bill Callahan was Rich Gannon's coach with the Raiders when they beat the Titans in the AFC title game to go to the Super Bowl. It's almost like Gannon's like, Bill, you know what to do, buddy.
Come on, big coach.
You know what to do in the first half, run the ball with Tony Pollard.
No,
I do think
good.
Bill Callahan, it probably is like let's say that somebody wants to say something to the head coach, but they don't want to encroach on the turf. I think you then go to Bill.
Yeah, maybe.
And you say, Bill, hey, I think that we're better off running 22 jump stunt than, that. And then Bill's like, I think you make a good point. Let me go ahead and do
it. How much the Callahans kind of collaborate on the play calling. I don't know.
Phone line streamed by WilsonCountyHunter.com, 615-737-1025. One texter says, you have to hit some home runs in order to beat Brett Favre and also not throw for below league average yards per attempt. Levis's yards per attempt, I believe, on Sunday was in the 4 range, which is terrible. To me, just terrible. And I got to say, a lot of people are trying to couch the Levis horrific performance, and they're trying to excuse it. They're trying to say, well, but Peyton Manning threw all these interceptions in his first season. And Peyton Manning, when he was a rookie, was 22 years old. Will Levis Sunday, was 25. I have a hard time with this. Like, really believing that we can just, Brett Favre did some dumb stuff on the field. So Levis, Levis threw for 127 yards. Gary from Clarksville says, so you don't think Levis can't change or grow? He hasn't been an NFL starting quarterback for a full year yet. Here we go. Hasn't been a starter for a full year.
It's true, though.
A whole full year.
Have to get a full 16, 17 games, full sample size.
Why?
Everyone else does, don't they?
Do they?
A rookie season?
Again, when I went over the list of guys with the first start in their second year, the one exception to this was Love, because Love didn't play his second year. So that was his first start of his third year. But everybody else, I don't know how many games Aikman played his first year. Tom Brady, his first game of his second year was his first career start. Same with Brett Favre. And again, they were statistically significantly better than Will Levis, and their teams won. So I don't know how many games Justin Herbert played. I don't know how many games Baker
He played
Mayfield
the whole season, didn't he? Herbert?
I believe
his
he did not play
year?
the first game. And then the doctor stuck, I think it was the second or third
Oh,
game.
yeah, when they stuck
the doctor
Tyrod.
stuck Tyrod Taylor, yeah. But Baker Mayfield, Tyrod Taylor was a starting quarterback for like 6 weeks, got a concussion, and Baker went in there. And so that game against the Titans, that wasn't Baker's first full year. Will Levis is 25 years old. Like, to me, if you were to make an argument for a guy to say, hold on, we need to treat this guy more like a rookie than we should treat him like a second-year guy, it ain't Levis, who started a majority of the season last year. It's Anthony Richardson, who played 4 games and is 22 right now. And I'm not even making excuses for him. Now, he played very well, but I'm not making excuses for him.
He played up and down.
So when you guys tell me that Will Levis, it's not fair for Will Levis, he's 25 years old. And here's the other thing. This is why I use the second year. Because no matter how much you play your first year or second year, and again, Levis played enough last year. He got 9 starts last year. That is over half of the season. When you go into your second year in the NFL, you know what it takes to be a pro. Like when you've done it for a year, you know what it takes to be a pro. And the single most egregious part of what Levis did on Sunday that I can't get over is the hits. Last year, Levis got into the league. He's yoked as hell. And he's like, I'm Johnny Tough Guy.
Josh Allen keeps taking hits.
And he just kept getting ripped apart. Josh Allen slides, though.
No, not this week.
But they keep telling Will Levis, they keep saying, don't do that. And Will Levis goes into the press conference and he says, I'm not going to do that anymore. And then he does it. So either he's lying to the coaches, whether it's Vrabel or Callahan, and saying, no, coach, you're right. Also, I'm pretty sure Josh Allen wasn't taking kidney shots in the preseason.
He takes a lot, maybe not in the preseason, but he takes unnecessary hits. Well, he doesn't play in the preseason.
This is what leads me back. Yeah, he does. Josh Allen plays preseason. The Bills play their starters.
A little.
But this is what takes me back to, again, when he gets out there, he can't turn it off. Like, he cannot turn the brain off. It's like, I know the coach said do it, but he's not thinking. He can't do it. And so, to me, it's one thing if you've got that problem going into your rookie year and your coaches sit you down and say, don't do it. You say, I got you, coach. And then you go out there and you do what the coach says. It's another thing when they say, don't do it. You say, I got you, coach. And then you go do it. And then the next coach comes in and says, don't do that. He says, I got you, coach. And then you go out there and you continue to do it. Levis is sitting there with a heating pack on his back. I'm like, oh, Lord. So, yeah, I don't think Levis can change because he can't do it. Or else he would have done it.
Change taking the hits?
Yes. Which is all about thinking. That Levis didn't go out on that play. Now, he didn't see the blitz, which is amazing because I did and Adam Amin did calling the game. But he didn't see the blitz. And then when it came, he couldn't process okay, take the sack, let's punt, move on. He tried to do, he's like, I just had touchdown Bears. The butt fumbler couldn't believe it in live time. We're not asking for an Einstein-level approach to quarterback play. We're asking for basic stuff that the Hillsborough High School quarterback knows not to do. You can't do it. Just can't do it. Like at some point, you have to use your brain. And I've just figured out that he can't do it. Somebody says, let's give him 4 games under Brian Callahan, Jared. I mean, Brian Callahan told you yesterday Will Levis can't use his brain. When he said, I told him before the 4th quarter, don't do anything stupid. So either he's openly defying the coach, which there is some of this. You know, these guys are like the coach say, hey, I want us to do that. They say, okay, coach. And then they go in the huddle and do the opposite. That does happen.
That's not Levis, though.
That's not Levis. And like, I don't want to say Levis is stupid because I don't think he is stupid. Like, I don't think that he's a stupid guy.
He seems like a smart guy.
If he was running a business or maybe a part of a business, he could run it well because he seems like a bright guy. But when he gets out on those white lines and it becomes serious, he does stupid stuff and he can't stop himself from it. He's not going to learn. He's 25 years old. I don't understand. It's like everyone's like, well, no, it doesn't, because Brett Favre did stupid stuff too. Well, Brett Favre actually is stupid. And yet the thing with Brett was he lived and died the same way. Levis isn't doing any living. He's just dying this way. Vincent is up next on our program. Thank you for calling. Thank you for waiting. Vincent, go ahead.
Yeah, Jared, we've seen this movie. We've been watching it for 20 years. It's on repeat in this town. Everybody knows how this movie ends. We all know how it's going to end. Look at the history. Just rewind the movie. Fast forward it. You'll tell you how it ends. We've been watching it for 20-something years. We know how it ends. But anyway,
Tell me how it
question
ends,
is this.
Vincent. Well, go ahead with your question.
We know how it ends. They break out the book of excuses. Chapter 3, blah, blah, blah. Let's get down there and let's blame it on the cap, or let's blame it on we changed the coach. We changed a different system. We just heard it all. I mean, we know what they're going to say.
One texter says, did Brady and Marino have brand new systems in their second year?
I mean, just lean on it. I mean, whatever makes you sleep at night. If that makes you curl up and go to bed thinking the Titans are going to be good, hang on to it. But the bottom line is, we've seen the movie. We know how it ends. But anyway, I will go back to what I really called in. Let's say the Titans had a GOAT quarterback. He was the dog, won an AFC championship, maybe took them to a Super Bowl. Didn't win it. Let's say, who's the Tahakalugi? Let's say we had a Tahakalugi in this town. Okay, and his contract come up. There's no way the Titans pay him that. No way. No way.
Well, I mean, I think they would. I mean, again, and I use Dak Prescott.
Absolutely
Vincent,
not, Jared. There's no way
I appreciate
that they
your
pay
call,
that.
and I agree with the first part that we do know how this story is going to end. Some people are just afraid to get there, but like we know how the story's going to end. Levis is going to get hurt, and then Mason Rudolph will go in, and they'll win 6 games this year. But if the Titans had a quarterback, they'd pay the quarterback. I am convinced of that. If the Titans had Justin Herbert, they'd pay Justin Herbert. If the Titans had Trevor Lawrence, they'd pay Trevor Lawrence. If the Titans had any of the guys that have been paid, hopefully not including Tua, but if they would have paid him. They would pay a quarterback. The Bengals have paid their quarterback. The cheapest organization in the league. Jerry, one of the cheapest a-holes in the history of the NFL, Jerry Jones. He's paid his quarterback. The one guy who didn't pay the quarterback is actually Robert Kraft. Because Robert Kraft never really gave Brady the contract that Brady wanted. And ultimately what led to Brady leaving, now they blame Belichick for this, but what led to Brady leaving was Brady wanted the Drew Brees contract. He wanted the 2 years, $25 million, and Kraft said no. Because Belichick told Kraft to say no. But Robert Kraft never paid full price. He's the one guy. Everybody else pays their quarterback. And you would pay your quarterback. If you had a franchise quarterback, again, I think ownership here has their faults. We talk about them aplenty. In fact, I wonder if the owner is out on the quarterback now after Sunday too. But if that was the case, they'd pay the quarterback. Phones, 615-737-1025, Stillman and Company, 1025-1063 The Game.
Everything about Will up to that point, you don't know if you've made the progress or not until you play in a game, and those are just things that I was surprised that he did. The sack fumble, not much you can do about that. The guy comes free off his backside, he doesn't see it. He's getting ready to draw on the throw, and the guy rakes his arm. That happens. But the interception was a really poor decision. I know what he was trying to do is trying to do the right thing in that case, but sometimes the right thing is to take a sack. And he should have done that in that particular case. They had a blitz on that wasn't expected in that area, and they won that rep, and we just got to not make a bad play worse and take the sack. So tough pill to swallow for him, tough lesson to learn, but he's got to learn it.
He's got to learn it. Or let's go back to your phones. As promised, Bill has been waiting patiently. He's up next on Levis. Thank you for calling. Thank you for waiting. Go ahead, Bill.
Yes, I just can't believe that no one really has stated what I thought was obvious, and that was he was throwing the ball away just like he had done earlier in the game. Now, what was, that wasn't necessarily stupid. It was just poor execution. Just like before, I thought it was a fumble, and that looked bad. Fortunately, they didn't treat it as a fumble. They treated it as a, incomplete pass. And I think he was just trying to do the very same thing.
Right.
But it's more on execution and not stupidity of him trying to throw the ball away. That was the right thing to try to do.
It's stupid. It's stupid. And here's why it's stupid. Because he's trying to throw on the run across his body because he's a right-handed quarterback. He's trying to throw a shovel pass 10 yards up the field outside the numbers with a defender standing right there. That's what makes it stupid. It's like there was one where they tried to set up a screen and it wasn't there, and Levis dirted the ball and threw it right at the receiver's feet. You remember that one?
Yeah.
So that's smart.
The thing to do is to throw it down on the ground, but you got it. But
the right thing to do is to take the sack. The right thing to do, thank you for your call, Bill. The right thing to do there is take the sack. The coach just said it. But again, so throwing the ball away, I agree. If Levis could have rolled out and there was a receiver on the sideline and right-handed could have thrown the ball 20 rows up into the seats, that would have been the right decision. But instead, he tried a shovel pass in the field of play outside the numbers where a defender was present. Stupid. You see what I'm saying? And I don't think he does, but I actually think that Levis thought that was going to be what the caller was intending. Let's go to Greg, who's up next here on the program. Greg, thank you for waiting and holding. Go ahead.
Hey, Jared. So now I'm a Colts fan. I've, big Anthony Richardson. Anthony Richardson came out of college with hardly any experience, but he's grown tremendously, obviously. Plus, he's playing with a good quarterback coach, if you want to call him. Call Shane Steichen that as well. But why is everybody in Nashville, all over really the country, the commentators, giving up on Will Levis, it sounds like, when, Anthony Richardson had no experience and he has grown this far? Why do they not believe Will Levis is not going to do the same?
Well, I think for starters, because Will Levis doesn't have the same amount of talent as Anthony Richardson. Will Levis is older than Anthony Richardson. He has more experience than Anthony Richardson. And I think it's fair to say that Anthony Richardson's already better.
Oh, I think he is.
So don't you see what I'm saying? It's like, well, I mean, why not give Malik more opportunity? Greg, thank you. Why not give Malik more opportunities? Malik, how many starts did Malik get? But we know what Malik is. That's why you don't give Malik more opportunities, because
Matt
know what Malik is.
He believes.
I don't think he believes. I think he's
believes as a backup.
Corner. I think he's
signed him as a
stuck
backup
in a corner with
before
Sean Clifford
before he got hurt.
A guy who beat out Levis for a job. But again, I don't care what happens in college. But again, to me, here's my thing. The old saying is, dumb guys stay dumb, fat guys stay fat, injured guys stay injured. Levis always gets hurt, and it's clear that whenever the bullets are flying, Levis cannot harness the stupid things. He cannot, the reflexes, they're bad. They're bad, and it costs you the game. Again, all he's got to do is just take the sack. The coach literally said, don't do anything stupid. The coach is probably sitting there thinking, if I had, Vrabel would have done this. There was a 3rd and 15 where Levis actually made a very nice throw and hit, I believe it was Ridley, for a first down in the first half. And at 3rd and 15 with that offensive line, you know me, I'm like, go ahead, run the ball and just bring out the punter. Well, in this case, I think Brian Callahan's probably sitting there saying 3rd and 6, if I could do it over again, I might have called a draw for Tajay Spears. Maybe Spears picks up the 6. He probably doesn't, but at least we're bringing the punter back out there. Chan is up next on the program. Oh, excuse me. Jack is up next on the program. Jack, go ahead.
Hey, so I know you don't think Levis is the guy, but do you think Levis and the Titans could be like the Buccaneers pre-Brady or even the Broncos pre-Peyton? Like he's a placeholder?
So they could be bad. Because the Buccaneers were bad. And the Broncos, I mean, Tebow won a playoff game, but do I think he could be Tebow? Yeah, I think he could be Tebow. Yeah, exactly. You know, do you think we could be the Buccaneers before Brady? Yeah, that awful Buccaneer team that came in here and lost. The defense was good. I remember I was listening after Floyd passed away, these old Jerry and the GM shows, and one of them was after the Tampa Bay game where Vrabel faked that field goal, and I was going crazy about it, and Floyd was like, he's not going to change. And at the very end of the hour, I was like, you know, the one thing I'll say about Tampa is I know their defense doesn't rank very well, but I think their defense is pretty good. And then when they ended up getting rid of Jameis Winston and they brought in Tom Brady, all of a sudden the defense was a Super Bowl champion caliber defense. And I was like, I don't get a lot of things right, but I guess I found a way to get that one right. Chan, quickly, you're up next. Go ahead.
Yeah, I just wanted to make a couple points. The one in the first
Give me your
half
best
when he was
one.
trying to get rid of. What's that?
Give me your best one. Go.
Oh, yeah. When he was trying to get rid of the ball in the first half, it was second down, so it made sense to save the yards. When he was trying to get rid of the ball in the second half, it was third down. It made no sense to try to save the yards, and then it turns into a pick six. And then
Jan,
my
good
question
call.
for you is what happened to the short passing game?
You know, it is what it is. That's it for us. We're out of here. Stillman and Company. We'll see everybody tomorrow, too.